Welcome back to Chronos, the channel that explores alternate universes and asks the question, what if? Today, we continue our journey in the world of superheroes and ask the question, what if Deku became Saitama? In Part 5, we explore the idea that being a vigilante is just another word for being a hero. Chapter 15 Those in the Shadows. Izuku and Taku were just cruising across the city, neither having any real idea where they were going. The city of Kashyyyk, to those in the know, was well known for its underground and shady operations, making it the perfect place to set up the underground masquerade. Taku had done some digging, and if it were here it would definitely be in an area that was obvious but not overly so, like a deep parking garage or something. Both boys also knew that there were a good handful of organized crime syndicates in this city, but the police monitor their movements, so they're typically a non-threat. Their plan was to find someone in the know and go with them to the event, but finding a shady-looking person who'd be willing to trust them was looking to be a challenge. The boys sit on a bench to relax a bit. We've just been walking around for over an hour. Either we find this place by accident or we find someone who can take us, Izuku stated. We gotta keep looking around. We can find the place if it's hidden in the usual areas. By the way, here you go. I forgot to give this to you back at the hotel. Good thing I grabbed them. He mentioned this while handing Izuku a pair of black and red gloves while he put on a pair of black ones. The two went quiet for a moment, looking around them and taking in their surroundings. Izuku looked down the street and saw a tall, bulky guy with light hair wearing a black and red mask, a white shirt, baggy black jeans and boots, a light blue tunic and gloves with metal wraps on his arms. The guy definitely looked like an underground fighter. Hey Taku, I think I just found a lead. Taku turned to where his friend was looking. That guy? I guess he would fit the bill. Let's see if he knows anything. Let me do all the talking. The two follow the man down the street until they get close enough to speak to him. Hey guy, can we talk for a minute? Taku spoke out to the man. He turned around surprised to see two teenage kids. Hey, what do you guys want? We spotted you down the street and you seem interesting, so let me get straight to the point. I'm looking to see some good fights while my man here is looking to bust some heads. He gave Izuku a hard pat on the back as he said this. You look like the kind of guy who knows where we can get what we want, so can you help us out? The mentioning of a fight seemed to excite the man. Oh. So you guys are looking to rumble. Why didn't you start with that? My whole day's been boring and I've been waiting for some good fights. He exclaimed. Happy to hear it. We're looking for a place called the Underground Masquerade. You seem in the know about where we can find it, so do you? You runts are looking for the masquerade, huh? You're in luck. I was headed there now, but before that, I want a good warm-up, so let's go a quick round, right now. He exclaimed, totally serious. Taku should have expected this, but he tried to play through it. You sure? You look like a pretty serious guy, and I hate for you to get banged before we get to the fight club. Taku smirked, sarcastically. Don't worry about me. This is just a little warm-up, and since it's not a real fight, it's not a death match, so you can relax. He said once again, totally serious. Izuku finally spoke up. That's fine with me. I just had a good meal and I gotta work it off. Let's head into that alley and do this. He said with the man eagerly agreeing. By the way, what do we call you? Taku asked. Just call me Rappa. He replied with an excited smile. The three walked into a nearby alley, and after a little over 5 minutes of trading blows and loud bangs coming from the place they came out, Rappa came out looking beat up but very excited, while Izuku didn't have a scratch on his disguise. Kid, you are awesome. We definitely got to fight for real next time, Rappa exclaimed as they walked in the direction of the fight club. I wouldn't mind fighting you again, but for the record, I'm not a fan of death matches. Rappa looked disappointed. Oh come on. Those are the best fights. Going one-on-one with your quirks, with your life on the line, that's how a fight between men should be done. I've been in underground MMA most of my life. At a certain point I became too strong. After one punch my opponents would start begging for their lives. You ever felt that? Having to walk away from multiple fights unsatisfied? His tone switched to a more solemn one. I can't say I have. I can fully empathize with how you feel, Rappa. I mean, most strong people want to go all out against other strong people, but as a fighter you decide how every fight will be fought. If your opponent is on the same page as you, then go for it. But I personally know how I want to fight every match, so if I don't kill you, you can't really be mad at me because I won. Rappa looked at the plain mask of the kid in a rabbit hood. Ha ha ha, you're a weird kid, but you're strong so you'll fit in just fine at Fight Club. After a 40-minute walk they made it to the parking garage where the underground masquerade was being held. During the walk over, Izuku spoke to Rappa about what kind of place it was, and to his shock he learned he was one of the guys Mirko teamed up with to fight the strange Nomu all those years ago, but to avoid suspicions he couldn't ask for a lot of details. Still, what Rappa told him was viable information. Getting in was surprisingly easy, with Izuku and Rappa signing onto the fighters list before he parted from the teens. As Izuku watched Rappa leave he couldn't help but think, that guy wasn't so bad. The two boys looked around the crowded area, and to their shock the place was a lot more organized than they originally thought. Apparently you get paid for each fight you win and collect that at the office. Anybody looking to sell some goods is more than able to, but it's cash only. The place was full of fighters, spectators and underground people looking to do some business, all wearing some sort of mask. There was an octagon cage that acted as the ring, and they would call you through the speakers when it was your turn to fight. This was definitely a place where a lot of shady deals went down. More importantly, people have been reported to have gone missing from this place. Their theory was that they were most likely kidnapped and turned into Nomu. They made it inside, and it was time to look for answers. They were now deep in enemy territory where anything can happen, more than just disguises. Izuku and Takumi also chose aliases for when undercover like this. Izuku went with Seto Yuzui while Takumi chose Ryo Karui. I'll keep listening for when they call me to fight. Let's look around in the meantime, Ryo. Got it, he responded. The two looked around, taking in everything of this shady environment. Taku especially was looking around, as he had a special contact lens in his one exposed eye that was truly a high-def camera. It was recording everything he witnessed and was sending it all to the supercomputer back at the lab and his laptop back in their hotel room. For about 20+ minutes they looked around, talked to people and watched some fights. They were unsurprisingly as vicious as they expected. Of the first fights they saw, it appeared most of the fighters here had physical-based quirks. Izuku had to head to the stage when the intercom announced Red Rabbit would be fighting someone named Rhino Wrestler. That's my K, let's do this, he said as he walked to the ring. Taku didn't even look at him as he was occupied observing someone else. Hey Seto, before you go, what do you think about those guys? He asked while pointing a thumb at a group of men all wearing plague masks of some kind. Izuku looked in the direction of his friend and saw the group that were chilling in the corner but were surrounded by people. They were clearly selling something, and whatever it was, people were interested. My guess, drug dealers, he said casually through his mask. I'm gonna keep looking around, but I definitely want to talk to them. Okay, but in the meantime I have a fight, so I'm off. He raised a hand to say later. Meh, it's my first underground fight, I'm gonna watch. The two teens walked to the octagon and Izuku walked in from the opposite end of his opponent. He was a tall, heavy-set, muscular man with a type of rhino mutation quirk. He was wearing a blue tracksuit and full face mask on his head, black wristbands on each arm, and he had the kanji for smash on his shirt. He punched his left hand with his right a few times as a sign of intimidation. It's my first match and I was hoping for a decent warm-up, but I get some scrawny runt. Oh well, this won't take long, he boasted confidently. Hey, I may be shorter than you, but don't call me a runt, Izuku exclaimed. This only made the Rhino Man smirk. Whatever, I call it like I see it. You pesky, little, runt, he said much more mockingly this time. Izuku went into his thoughts after observing his opponent and their quick talk. So he underestimates me, good. Every martial artist knows that challenging or underestimating an opponent you know nothing about puts you 1 foot in the grave. His guard clearly isn't all the way up, I can use this. He finished his thoughts before the match started and Rhino Wrestler charged at him, looking to bulldoze him. Izuku runs head on to meet him, and before the two touch he becomes intangible, phasing right through the Rhino Man. Rhino Wrestler is clearly shocked as he manages to stop himself before hitting the cage. The moment he turned to see his opponent he was met with several kicks to the face. He tanks a handful of them before he brings up his arms to block. They are far stronger than he expected. Red Rabbit uses his last kick to jump off the Rhino Man and get some distance as he gets into a fighting stance. So, who's the runt now? He smiled behind his mask. Rhino Wrestler couldn't see his face behind his plain-looking mask, but he could tell he was smiling, and it made him mad. Still you. I hope you enjoyed that because it'll be that last hit you land on me, plus they didn't even hurt. That wasn't entirely true. I can do this all night, but I don't have that, so bring it on. Red Rabbit exclaimed. The rhino charged at him again, with him throwing a barrage of punches that Izuku uses his Psychokin to defend against. Not a single punch touches, he perfectly dodges and deflects them, all the while landing every counter and inching closer to the rhino. He fully takes advantage of the fact his opponent is both taller and longer than him. He's able to pummel Rhino Wrestler with point-blank punches that force him to back up. But before he could try to recover, Red Rabbit jumps at him with a right spin kick that he tries to block with his left forearm. His leg phases through the arm and a brutal kick connects with his face that stuns him. He quickly recovers and throws a right hook at the runt, but he jumps forward, phasing through him and sends him to the ground with a kick to the back of the head. He lays on the floor in pain as he thinks to himself, damn it all. He's strong, and his quirk makes him untouchable. What the hell can I do? I'm dead if I keep taking hits like this, he thought as he got back to his feet, shaking off the pain. He turns around looking for Red Rabbit, but he's nowhere to be seen. He looks up and around the ring completely confused. He takes a couple steps before he's hit in the side that makes him grimace in pain. He blindly swings at whoever hit him but hits nothing. He throws a punch at the air and he feels something grab his arm. He realizes too late as he's suddenly brought off the ground and slammed multiple times across the ring like a ragdoll before spinning and being tossed across the ring into the cage, landing upside down. He gets back up and angrily looks around the ring. Fight like a man, you coward, he bellowed. Okay. Red Rabbit casually replied as he suddenly appeared in front of the Rhino Man, shocking him. Taking advantage of his surprise, the rabbit jumps and lands a powerful triple kick to the rhino's head, knocking him into the ground, unconscious, and that's a win for Red Rabbit, the announcer exclaimed. Izuku flexed his arms as he left the ring and met back up with Taku. Way to catch your first dub, Rabbit, his friend said as he congratulated him with a fist bump. That went well, let's check out this office where I'm supposed to get paid. The two walk to where the office was and they find a door next to a counter window to it where a man with tentacles coming out of his head was inside wearing a mask and slides some money under the glass window. Good first fight, Rabbit, here's your pay. Izuku took the money and counted it. To his shock, it was 50,000 yen. He paused for a moment as he looked at the money, something the man noticed. Not used to making that much from one fight, are you? He said with an obvious smirk under his mask. No, I'm just a bit surprised. It's my first time here. I heard the fights and the money were good, but I still wasn't expecting this, he responded, his expression unreadable behind his mask. Well, you can call that a taste for right now. You'll get paid more the more fights you win. I saw your fight through my monitor and hear mine telling me what your quirk is. My quirk lets me vibrate my molecules to become intangible or invisible. If the fights and money stays this good, it'll be worth coming here, he said, trying to sound as arrogant as possible. The man crossed his arms as he spoke. Your quirk is impressive, keep kicking ass and the boss may want to offer you an opportunity. I'm curious, the organizer of something like this, what kind of person are they? All you really need to know is that they offer people who don't know what to do with their quirks a place to use them how they want. Izuku and Taku accepted the man's words and walked away. Well, that was ominous, he says to Taku after getting far enough away. Tell me about it. All the more reason to keep winning though. There's definitely something off about this place. Yeah, this whole fight club definitely feels like a front. I'm actually looking forward to meeting this organizer. The two went back to watching some of the fights and talking to people. They got to see Rappa win his fight and Izuku got to see several interesting quirks before he got called back. This time Red Rabbit was up against Power Fist. Entering the ring, he could see his opponent this time was a tall man with brown hair and a mohawk and black eyes. He was wearing a blue tank top and face mask. He had several piercings and a scar that ran diagonally across his face. He looked ready to go. Red Rabbit got in his stance and as soon as the match began it was on. Power Fist crouched to the ground and balls of energy appeared on both his hands as well as making energy revolve around both his arms. He slammed his fists together causing a loud bang before charging. Izuku put up his Psychokin and easily deflected all the incoming punches. After not getting through, Power Fist dropped to try and sweep his legs with Rabbit doing a butterfly flip to avoid it. Every guy in here seems to be a straightforward fighter. This'll be too easy, he thought before getting back to the fight. Back with Taku, he was doing a little investigating of his own. He decided to talk to the guys in masks that he saw earlier. They seemed really interesting to him, especially the one wearing a plague mask, a dress shirt under a green jacket and white gloves. The way he carried himself, he could tell that he was the leader of whoever these guys were. As he approached the group, he saw that they were selling some things. They had various containers filled with some red-looking bullets, but he also saw that they were selling trigger. This set off a red flag in his head, so he had to approach. "What's up?" His hands were in his pockets as he walked up to a man in a white coat wearing a plague mask, sounding as cool as possible. "What are you looking for, kid?" He responded casually. "Don't know. I saw a crowd around you guys and I got curious." "What do you got?" "We've got some exclusive product, stuff you'll only get from Shiasaikai. Shiasaikai, ha. This is my first time out here. What are you about?" "We're just out here to make a little money right now. We've got some drugs for the right price. Come check it out." The man turned around and showed him a small red bullet. "I can tell just by looking at that that's not a normal bullet." "So what's it do?" A man in a black cloak, plague mask and a black bowler hat suddenly approached the two. "Before we conduct any business, tell me, are you a hero, undercover police, or affiliated with any law enforcement group?" "No," Taku answered. Though it was the truth, his mouth moved on its own without him ever getting a chance to think about how to respond. He realized that this was this person's quirk and knew to be careful how to proceed from now on. "That was the truth. I'm not a narc or anything. But still, not cool using your quirk on your customers. This is very special product, try to understand." The black-cloaked man responded, "Not at all sorry. Back to the matter at hand, these bullets are very special. They can take a person's quirk away for a couple of hours." He stated causally, "I see. I know you can make a quirk booster, but a quirk eraser is next-level stuff. How did you make this?" he asked, not trying to sound suspicious. "Don't worry about that. If you want to buy one, it's 30k yen. 30k yen, damn man, I'm just supposed to have that on me?" he exclaimed dramatically. A small black creature with a white bird head spoke up. "You little punk. Don't you dare whine about our prices. This is just a sample. When the finished product is out, it'll be worth way more than this. So either buy one or scram," he exclaimed in a surprisingly deep and angry voice. "Relax, mimic, we're still doing business and the boss told us to sell." These words seemed to make the small creature relax as he turned back to the teen. "How much you got?" Taku scrunched his face behind his disguise. "Okay, I actually do have that. But how do I know that these work? We've tested them and can guarantee they work. I'll shoot one of my guys to prove it to you, but these are expensive, so you're definitely paying for this round. Hojo, come here." A bald man in a black dress shirt and white mask walked up. After explaining the situation, he sprouted crystals on his body as a gun was pointed at his chest, and he didn't look the least bit scared about it. "So, final warning, you want to waste money on this test or you want to just buy one?" Taku took a moment to think about the question. They seem really confident in these bullets and people have been coming and going from this group for a while. If these are authentic, I need as much of it as possible because this will definitely turn into something. Finally making his decision, he spoke. "All right, hold up, you don't have to shoot one of your own guys to prove a point, give me two," he exclaimed. Suddenly not so cheap are we? Not what it's about, I just hate wasting money," he said in a tone that sounded believable. After paying them 60k yen in cash, they gave Taku a special gun loaded with 2 bullets and he went on his way. "Had to spend all the money I brought with me, but it seems worth it. I can't wait to get back to the lab and study this," he thought as he walked to the octagon just in time for them to announce that Red Rabbit won another fight. The two friends bumped fists as they walked to collect Izuku's winnings. He was impressed with his sidekick for the good job, promising to use his winnings to buy food after this. After going back to the office and collecting his 60k yen prize, they went back to waiting for the next fight. They were surprised to hear that the next two to enter the octagon were Rappa and someone named Overhaul. "Rappa's fighting next, let's go check it out." As the two joined the rest of the crowd surrounding the octagon, they could see Rappa slamming his fists together ready to go, while his opponent in a plague mask merely took off one of his white gloves. He seemed relatively uninterested in the fight. "That's Shiasaikai's boss. I wonder what his quirk is," Taku said. "That's supposed to be my line. Still, given a name like Overhaul, I've got a good idea, and it definitely requires him touching something." Izuku studied the man in charge of those who sold so-called quirk erasing bullets. With his training and time as one, he has built up an arsenal of detective skills, and he could easily tell this man was very business-oriented. He had plans for Rappa, and this fight was merely a stage. Plus, given the mask and gloves, the guy's definitely a germaphobe. Let's see how this goes down. The match began and Rappa rushed his opponent hungry for a fight. Overhaul dodged his first punch and with his gloveless hand swiped Rappa's left arm. An instant later his entire upper body exploded in a burst of blood. Rappa, Izuku said in a low voice, slightly horrified. Though his hunch about Overhaul's quirk was confirmed, he was still shocked to see someone just die like that. Overhaul then swung his hand back and suddenly Rappa was back together again, dropping to his knees and breathing heavily. The crowd was still hyped, so he was probably the only one who could hear Overhaul walk up to Rappa and say, "A deal's a deal." And Rappa, while still clearly in shock from the past few moments, said, "I'll win next time." Overhaul was named the winner and they both left the octagon. The night went on with Red Rabbit snatching win after win, making more and more money as the night went on, and before they knew it 2 hours had gone by. Rappa went over to the Shiosaikai after his loss to Overhaul and didn't fight again after that. Red Rabbit had dominated 10 matches, showing off his quirk as much as possible. He and Taku went to collect his winnings from his most recent match and were surprised to see Overhaul and the man in the white cloak coming with them. "You guys off to get paid too?" Izuku asked the pair as they walked. Overhaul responded, "Something like that. I want to discuss some business with the boss of this operation. They told me earlier if I won enough fights they might want to offer me some kind of opportunity. I watched a couple of your fights. You've got talent, and a strong quirk. We may be a small-time Yakuza right now, but I've got a plan to rise to the top. It would be good to have someone like you on for the ride," he said casually with his mask making his voice sound dry. "So they're here to sell drugs and recruit members to their group, Yakuza? That's organized crime, surely one of many based out of this city. If they can make bullets that take away quirks, we should definitely keep tabs on these guys," but quietly, he thought to himself. "Thanks for the offer, but no thanks. I just came here to bust some heads and make some money, and I got plenty of both. Plus my man here did some business with your guys earlier, and if these are as good as you say, we'll do business again," he said pointing a thumb at Taku. "So you bought some of our product. I can guarantee it works and I'm sure you'll like it. I have a couple things I could use it for." They arrive at the office and the man seems happy to see them. "That's your 10th win, way to kick some ass, Red Rabbit." He looks over to the other 2 men. "And you're Overhaul, right?" "Yeah, that's me. I came to you because I wanted to ask you about speaking to the person in charge. I have a business proposition I think they'd be interested in." His face was stern but gave no clear indication of what he was thinking. "That's a definite possibility, but the boss has several other operations running out of here. You look like drug dealers and far from the only ones in here, so how are you different? All I can say to you is that our product is something only our organization can produce. And in time will shake up the entire world." The man raised an eyebrow, quite ambitious. "I'm not against letting you see the boss, but if I'm being perfectly honest, he's a little upset you didn't fight more." "What? Your last fight was against Rappa. He really liked your quirk and wanted to see more of that? I came here to sell some product and recruit people into my organization. This was a business trip, nothing more," he said, fully serious. Izuku and Taku, who had been standing there the whole time, were both fully attuned to the conversation in front of them, but they couldn't let them forget they were there. "Ah, hey, my money?" Red Rabbit waved a hand as he stepped to the glass window. "Relax, I didn't forget about you, Rabbit. Here you go." He slides 140k yen under the glass window. "Speaking of the boss, he wants to meet you. Take the elevator upstairs and his office will be on the left," he said pointing a thumb to the elevator. Putting the money in what were now full pockets, he turned back to the man. "So, is this that opportunity you mentioned earlier?" he asked, with a sly grin behind his mask no one could see. "I don't know, go upstairs and find out." He turned back to the Yakuza. "All right, Overhaul, this is what I'll do. I'll call the boss and ask if he'll speak with you. Give me a minute." He pulled out his phone before walking to the end of the room to make the call. Izuku and Taku made their way to the elevator when Taku's right arm was suddenly grabbed by a tentacle. "Only Red Rabbit gets to go upstairs, no plus ones," he said in a stern voice as he began talking to someone. The two got some privacy as Taku let out a sigh. "Wish I could come with." It's fine, whatever this is, it shouldn't take too long. You should head back to the hotel, I'll catch up with you later. Got a feeling this could be a trap? I'm definitely getting that vibe. I hope it is. I'll get some answers tonight, one way or another. That's just like you. First step, spot the trap. Next step, spring the trap. Out of curiosity, how much money did you win tonight? I haven't counted it yet, but I won 50k yen my first match and it went up 10k every fight after that and I won 10 total, so I've probably got 950k yen on me more or less. Thanks for picking out baggy shorts with big pockets. Taku just grinned. I know, right? I'll head out now, call me as soon as you leave here. I'll order some pizzas and we can play games. No way in hell I'm spending a 3-day weekend just working, bet. Izuku replied with a fist bump as his friend walked into the crowd towards the exit. At that same moment Overhaul seemed to be having a talk with his friend in white. With his sharp hearing he heard him say to tell the others to head back to base without him before he made a way for the elevator. Izuku did the same with Overhaul, hitting the up button first, and after a 5-second wait the elevator opened with them both stepping inside. The two men stood in silence as the elevator took them upstairs. This is the whole reason I came here. The one in charge of this tournament knows something. I need to get all the info I can from this one visit. I do not want to make a habit of coming back here. He thought to himself. Suddenly a dark gray substance burst from the mouths of the two men, this sudden act startling both of them. What the hell? Overhaul exclaimed as the substance began to consume his body. Izuku acted surprised, but he didn't panic as he was already expecting some sort of trap. The substance seemed to consume his body and he quickly realized this was some sort of warping quirk. So this is the trap. Damn, this is nasty. This is what I get for walking into such an obvious trap. Whoever's doing this better have what I'm looking for, he thought as he allowed himself to be consumed by the substance. When the elevator opened up at the desired floor, it was completely empty with no trace of its two occupants. In a darkly lit office above the underground masquerade, a man looks at several monitors viewing the event. More specifically, he was looking at the camera in the elevator and the two inside it who disappeared after being consumed by a gray substance. A big smile on his face as he looked to another screen revealing a large brightly lit square room that the warped men suddenly appeared in. Doctor, I've put 2 new test subjects in place, send a high-end to greet them. He thought for a moment before continuing, how about Fist? That's doable. Are either of their quirks to your liking? Dr. Ujiko responds, yes, both of theirs actually. Of all the quirks I've seen tonight, theirs interest me the most, so I definitely want them copied. Understood, and I'll have them ready for you as soon as I can. He said before hanging up. Even if these two somehow survive a high-end Nomu, I'll still get their quirks before this is over, so this should be a more enjoyable show. He smiled as he looked at the screen with Red Rabbit and Overhaul seemingly talking to each other. What the hell is this place supposed to be? Overhaul exclaimed, clearly on edge. Obviously some kind of trap. Man, all I wanted was to bust some heads and make some money. Gonna need half a bottle of mouthwash to get the taste of that stuff out of my mouth, he said, wiping his mouth. Whatever this is, I'm not sticking around, not the kind of business I wanted to conduct. Overhaul said as he turned around and walked towards the wall behind him. I'm with you there. Red Rabbit agreed, turning to walk with the man. After a few steps the two stopped and turned around after hearing a strange splashing sound. The same gray substance from the before appeared with a black Nomu coming out of it. The creature came out of the substance and crouched down with its right fist hitting the ground and his left resting on his thigh. It had a shredded, muscular body, looked above average height and had yellow eyes with red irises. It had an exposed brain surrounded by scruffy pink hair. What the hell is this thing? Overhaul asked, shocked. A Nomu. Izuku thought to himself. As the two were still registering this new development, the Nomu rushed at Red Rabbit. It was in his face in an instant, cocking back a right fist ready to smash his head. Red Rabbit quickly braced himself as he deflected it with his left hand and slammed a right back fist into the monster's face. To his surprise, the Nomu tried to backflip kick him as his punch sent him back. He raised his chin and leaned back, just barely avoiding it. The Nomu flies back and hops diagonally left to right before backflipping to stop itself while looking back at the two. What the hell just happened? Overhaul exclaimed as he was unable to follow what just happened. That thing just tried to kill me with one hit. Get ready. This just got serious. He answered as he got into a fighting stance. Nomu continued to look at the rabbit and read in front of it, "You're strong," it said in a rough voice. Overhaul narrowed his eyes. "This thing can talk." "Yes, it can," Izuku said, confused as his eyes widened under his mask. "He said I can't kill you, but I really want to fight," it said as it stomped its foot, cracking the floor as it took a fighting stance that completely shocked Izuku. It then looked at the two with an excited smile. "You better be really strong." Izuku looked at the monster that prepared to attack. "That stance, that's the stance for Rising Sky style of karate," he thought to himself. He turns to Overhaul. "Your name's Overhaul, right? I don't know what your quirk is, but I saw you use it earlier, so help me try to kill this thing." The man nodded in agreement as Izuku rushed at the Nomu and began trading blows with it. The two become blurs as they fight while Overhaul waits for a chance to strike, but he can't keep track of either of them. After deflecting and countering some punches, Izuku lands 3 kicks to the Nomu's left leg, side and head before throwing a heavy right punch to its chest that the monster blocks with its arm, pushing it back. The Nomu comes back, it jumps and flips, throwing several kicks at Izuku, who grabs its legs, spins and throws it away. Izuku feels the ground rumble as the floor forms into spikes that head towards the Nomu. The creature avoids them with skillful agility as it slips past the spikes to get back at Izuku. It throws a flurry of punches and kicks with Izuku blocks, dodges and counters, taking a couple hits on purpose. He dodges a right punch and chops the Nomu's arm, severing it in two before vibrating his fists and hitting it with a Yamazuki that sends it flying. It skids as spikes come for it, and using skilled agility it's able to dodge most of them, but one does pierce its left arm. The Nomu tears its arm off to avoid more incoming spikes, but to the shock of both men, 2 new arms quickly grow to replace the lost ones. "So this freak can regenerate?" Overhaul thought to himself as the creature continued to dodge his attacks. The Nomu jumps off of one of Overhaul's spike trails and throws a punch, firing a shockwave at Overhaul that hits his right forearm, breaking it instantly. It then fires multiple shockwaves at him, with several hitting his body. The man grimaces in pain as it puts its attention back on Izuku. "That quirk?" he thought just before the Nomu sends multiple volleys of shockwaves at him that he dodges. They crack and make imprints in the wall when they miss. He tanks a couple on purpose before phasing through a wave of them and turning invisible. The Nomu looked confused as its opponent was completely gone, speed blitzing the monster, and with one chop severed its head from its shoulders. The head hits the ground with the body following back. "It's over," he thought before suddenly he was blasted in the forehead by 2 lasers. Looking down, he could see the Nomu's eyes glowing red and what looked to be a whole new body growing from its severed head. After a few seconds the monster's body was good as new. "I underestimated the regeneration of this thing. Won't happen again," he thought as he jumped back to get some distance. It was back in his face and the two were fighting again. Izuku becomes intangible as the Nomu punches him, hitting nothing as he shifts and lands a heavy right to its lower stomach. It tries to retort with an elbow, but Izuku becomes intangible again, shifts and slams a right elbow to the face, then landing a hard left to its stomach. He isn't finished as he wails on the monster with powerful punches before phasing through it and kicking it in the back, sending it flying across the room. The Nomu gets its bearings as Red Rabbit is in its face in an instant. The Nomu grabs a tight hold on both his arms. Red Rabbit reacts quickly and grabs onto its arms as he knees the monster's chin hard. The powerful blow doesn't make the Nomu let him go. Izuku is shocked when he sees 2 giant arms come from its back as 2 massive hands clasp together. The attack comes down on him, slamming him into the floor, cracking it and making the whole room shake. Izuku bounces off the floor from the hit. As the Nomu is still holding on to him, the creature's eyes suddenly glow red. Reacting quickly, Izuku brings up both his feet to kick the monster in the chin and chest, his right foot tilting the monster's head just as 2 lasers flew from its eyes that cut into the ceiling. "How many quirks does this thing have?" he thought as he kicked off the Nomu's chest, taking both its arms with him. He backflips away and tosses the arms aside as the Nomu stumbles back. Its arms regenerate just as it's skewered and pinned by a spike against the wall. Turning around, he could see Overhaul, hurt but alive, using his quirk. "Good to know you're not dead," he joked as looked at the older man. "It'll take more than a few broken bones to kill me," he said, even though he healed himself with his quirk immediately after he was hurt and had just been watching him fight for a while now. Izuku turned back to the Nomu pinned by spikes as it struggled to free itself. He looked at the creature. It used Rising Sky's style of karate, but more than that, the air shockwave quirk it used, he was certain he'd seen it before. Then it came to him. The air shockwave quirk, the fighting style, the desire to fight and fight strong people, the scruffy pink hair that surrounded its brain. His eyes widened in horror as remembered when he was younger, an aggressive senpai that dubbed him a weakling because he was quirkless. Akaza, Soyama, he said to himself in realization. The Nomu's eyes glowed red again and it fired lasers at Izuku that he managed to dodge. He is surprised when he turns his head just in time to see the lasers coming back at him. He manages to dodge a second time and getting some distance he could see that the lasers were cutting and zigzagging to chase him. He starts moving his feet and is able to avoid it for a few seconds until the Nomu fires a second set of lasers with both sets hitting him and making him crash against the wall. He was able to block them but the right side of his jacket was destroyed revealing his black undershirt. Thankfully his mask was still hiding his face. Izuku pretends to be injured as the Nomu breaks free of its spike trap and heads for overhaul. He was crouched with his hand on the ground, he never saw it coming as in a flash he was kicked on the right side, breaking a few ribs and making him crash against the same side of the wall as Red Rabbit. Is that all? You were supposed to be strong, I'm not done yet. The monster reared in frustration. As he releases two giant arms from his back that beat on both his opponents, after a few smashes Overhaul is able to touch the hand and disassemble it with his quirk. Izuku took a couple hits on purpose before rolling under the fist and rushing in the direction of the Nomu. The creature seemed stunned as Overhaul got up, rubbing himself as he felt dirty and had coughed up what was surly blood. You made me dirty, he said with venom as he continued to rub himself. The creature didn't respond as it was struck with a flying kick that made it crash into the wall on the far side of the room. I'm ending this now, he said as he took a breath and took a fighting stance. The Nomu got back up and took its stance. Good, I want to keep using my strength on you, the monster exclaimed as it rushed his opponent. You showed your hand to me earlier, all I have to do is destroy your head to finish you. You have no idea how doable that is. You have the skills of a martial artist but zero heart. Let me show you what my strength looks like. The two rushed at each other with Red Rabbit viciously pummeling the Nomu. The monster takes hit after hit with punches so fast it doesn't have a chance to try and defend itself. The Nomu tries to counter with both its arms being instantly severed. The fighter in red continues to beat the armless creature with brutal punches and kicks. After a brutal flurry of punches followed by a hard side kick, the Nomu is pushed back and clearly in a lot of pain. Its limbs start to regenerate but in a flash Red Rabbit is in its face. He plants his feet, cracking the floor as he lands an uppercut that makes the creature's head explode in a splash of blood and gore. The Nomu's body hits the floor as nothing but dead weight. Izuku takes deep breaths to give the impression that he's tired. He turns to Overhaul. That's over now, let's get the hell out of here. Right. Walking past the headless Nomu, a black portal suddenly appeared beneath it with the corpse falling through. The two stepped back to avoid the same fate. Now what? Izuku exclaimed, though he knew exactly what it was as he suddenly felt a presence behind him. He turns around to see a hand with a hole in the center coming through a portal trying to grab him. He grabs the arm it's attached to, fully squeezing it. That's really rude, you know, he said sarcastically. Overhaul looks to see what was happening and was horrified. He remembered stories of the boss telling him about the old days, how the underworld was ruled by one man, one charismatic, dangerous, very powerful man. Most in his generation think that he's a myth from a past era, but his boss assured him he was real and very much alive to this day, that he should never cross him. He had the power to take away a person's quirk, permanently, and had it to his own power, a man with holes in his hands, and his name is All for One, he said in a low voice, trembling slightly. Red turned to the man. All for One, what's that? Who you're holding on to, and you're officially on your own, he exclaimed as he touched the ground, making the wall in front of him come down, revealing woods. I alerted my guys while you were fighting. They'll find me. Try not to die, he said before running towards the opening and into the woods. He didn't get far as a small portal opened in front of him with another hand coming through, successfully touching his face. A red aura surrounded both his face and the hand. Sensing something bad, Izuku quickly lets go of the hand and tackles Overhaul, freeing him from the hand's grip and jumping into the woods and running away while carrying the man. When he jumped he could see the lights of a city. Hopefully it was Kashyyyk, but it showed him that they were on an incline and very far away, so he just had to head down. Though it's dark, Izuku doesn't have a problem seeing as he runs through the woods fast, but not really. After running through the woods then down a hill they make it to a waterway. Izuku looks to his left and can see a bridge with cars and people walking on it. He puts Overhaul down and they begin to walk down to the bridge. I could have ran on my own. I didn't need you to carry me. He complained. Whatever, be grateful. You were gonna leave me back there. And what was all of that about anyway? Who is All for One, the king of the underworld, and the absolute last person you want to be your enemy? Speaking of Dash, he stopped his thoughts as he put a hand on the ground and a bridge appeared from under the water before going back to normal. He let out a sigh of relief. Good, I'm fine. Why, something wrong with your quirk? I was afraid I wouldn't have my quirk. That's who AFO is. He can steal quirks permanently and add them to his own power. I used to think he was a myth from the old days, and if he was real he would surely be dead. But those hands with holes, plus when I was grabbed I felt my quirk slipping from me, there's no doubt that that was him. So that's who we were dealing with back there. All the more reason to keep getting far away. I recognize that bridge. We're still in Kashyyyk, right on the edge of town. Good to know. Izuku responded as they continued heading to the bridge. The two walked in silence as they made it to the bridge. After crossing it and walking for a while a car pulls up to the sidewalk with Overhaul's men calling for him. Kai. The white coat man calls out. Hey Chrono, took you guys long enough. He said as he got in the car. Izuku raised a finger. Can I get a ride? I don't know this city at all and my GPS says it'll take 2 hours to get to my hotel. Some of the guys in the car looked to tell him to piss off when Overhaul just sighed. Let him in. The Yakuza didn't debate as they let Izuku in. He told them where he needed to go and they headed off. During the drive the Yakuza asked their leader how he ended up like this with him explaining the situation to the shock of all of them. Izuku was just chilling and enjoying the ride. While anyone else would have been intimidated by the looks some of the men were giving him he was completely unbothered by them. After 15 minutes of driving Izuku recognizes the area so they pull up to a sidewalk and let him out. Thanks for the ride guys, take care. Remember what I said before, we could use a guy like you in the Hasaikai. Thanks but no thanks. Tonight may have gotten a little crazy but I digress. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, you lot keep doing what you're doing. He said, completely serious. Alright then. Overhaul said before rolling up the window and the car drove off. As he saw the car drive away he was left with his thoughts, so AFO is who I'm looking for. If he can take quirks, he should also be able to give them. A quirk that can take quirks, and give them to people after modifying them. Just what kind of man is this? He put a finger to his chin as he thought. Gotta tell Taku about this ASAP. He thought before walking down the street. Izuku headed for his hotel. Before that he had to get out of his torn disguise. Luckily no one was able to see his face, but walking around with a ruined jacket with bunny ears with a plain mask and gloves made him look really suspicious so he decided to trash it. He dipped into a nearby alley and threw his jacket in a dumpster. He felt a presence approaching him but he ignored it. That was until he heard a gun cock behind his head. Put your hands up and don't try anything? A masculine voice ordered. Izuku complies, not afraid in the slightest, just indulging the gunman. Wanna tell me what this is about? He shoved the gun to the back of Izuku's head. Did I tell you to talk? I didn't, did I? You move, I shoot. You talk back, I shoot. You use your quirk, I shoot. You got me? Yes. Now. Empty your pockets? But you just said if I move you shoot? What I say about talking BA dash. In one swift motion Izuku shifts and spins, grabbing the gun and snatching it with his right while decking the gunman in the face with his left. He hits the ground while Izuku holds his own gun on him. The wannabe mugger is terrified. He puts his hands up in surrender. Okay, just relax. He pleaded with the teen he just tried to rob. Izuku kept the gun on him. Oh, I'm very relaxed. You're the one who seems stressed out. Look, please don't kill me. I'm sorry, alright. He kept his hands up in surrender. You're sorry, now you're sorry. You just threatened to shoot me in the back of the head for what basically amounts to nothing and now you want mercy. How does that make sense in your head? You don't expect to get what you give? Please don't kill me. I have a daughter, please. He pleaded. You have a daughter? He asked skeptically. What's her name? Shoko. He exclaimed without an ounce of hesitation and with genuine truth. How old is she? 13. What school does she go to? Kashyyyk Middle. What grades does she get? She's a straight A student. Izuku looked down at the man and he could tell that he was telling the truth. He also knew that he didn't want to, and was not going to shoot him. Whatever reasons he was doing this, they were for his family. Izuku gestured with the gun for him to stand up and he complied with his hands up. Izuku reaches into his pocket and grabs 2 stacks. After giving it a quick count he sees it was 110k yen. Here, he hands him the money, something that clearly surprises him. He is reluctant to take it but after a moment he does. Why? He asks, genuinely confused. Because I knew you weren't going to shoot me, more importantly I could tell you didn't want to. Those questions I asked showed that whatever your reasons for doing something this stupid, they were with your family in mind. So take this, if it can make things easier, even a little. The man was speechless as he looked at the money in his hands. He looked like he was about to cry. Thank you, he exclaimed as he bowed his head. Izuku could hear the relief and gratitude in his words. He turned to walk out of the alley before stopping and turning back to the teen. Can I have my gun back? He asked hesitantly but still completely serious. Izuku said nothing as he slowly crushed the gun in his hand. The mugger just looked down and sighed. Right, he said in defeat before walking away. After the incident Izuku left the alley and made his way towards the hotel. He called Taku and gave him a simple version of what he had gone through. They would talk in more detail when he got back to the hotel. Taku himself had gotten back not too long ago and had ordered some pizzas and would be there by the time he got back. Izuku got back to his walk after hanging up. The city of Kashyyyk, despite the craziness since he got here, did look beautiful in the night time. He was the only person walking down the street where he was and looking in the distance he could see a police station. Sensing a presence approaching him he turns to his left in time to see a little girl crash into him. He is surprised by this and the girl falls on her butt. Whoa, you really took a tumble there. Here, let me help you up. He reaches down to help the little girl but she flinches and tenses up. This makes Izuku hesitant for a second. Hey, it's okay, Izuku says with a smile as helps the little girl up. Taking a look at the child his hero instincts and detective skills kick in. This girl looks no older than 7, running around the city this late at night, barefoot and unattended. She's wearing a large beige shirt but what really concerns him is that this kid has bandages around her arms and legs. The way she first reacted to him says she's not used to people. She's clearly scared and her eyes are screaming for someone, anyone to help her. Her eyes also reveal a lot of pain. She escaped from somewhere and wherever it was really bad. This girl needed help, she needed a hero and he was going to be that. He lowers himself to her level. Hi, my name's Izuku, what's your name? He asked with a smile. The girl looked hesitant at first but she opened up. Eri. It's nice to meet you, Eri. It's really late, why are you out here by yourself? She tenses up again. The way she's acting says that she's remembering something painful and she starts trembling. I don't want to go back, she exclaims as she grabs onto him. Izuku holds onto her. It's okay, he says warmly as he rubs her back. The two embrace for a moment before Izuku tries to talk again, the child seemingly becoming more relaxed and comfortable around him. He breaks the embrace, gently holds Eri's shoulders and looks her straight in the eye. Eri, who hurt you? Her face tenses into a sad expression as she looks down. Don't worry, I promise I'll protect you. She raises her head and red eyes met emerald. You ran away from a bad place and a bad person tonight, didn't you, Eri? The white-haired girl nods her head, keeping eye contact. You're really brave, he says with a smile. Your eyes tell me everything I need to know. You ran away because you wanted help. I'm right here, he said with conviction. A few tears fell from Eri's eyes as she hugged him again, with Izuku returning it. 30 minutes later, Izuku was sitting with Eri in a room at Kashyyyk PD. Luckily it just happened to be down the street. The two talk while they wait for the police to come back. Izuku had some questions that he would surely need to answer, but the issue right now was Eri and her problems. After a while 2 officers walked into the room with a file, taking a photo out then sliding it onto the table. So is this the man you described? One of the officers asked while showing Eri a picture of Overhaul. The look on her face is one of fear as she nods her head. We figured as much, the officer said as he put the photo back in the file. Both of the officers take a seat at the table. Okay Midoriya, good news and bad news. The good news is, we believe you. The bad news is we can't do anything with this, at least not right now. What do you mean? Izuku asked. I mean that we're currently investigating the Shia psyche. You may not be aware of this, but organized crime is heavily monitored by law enforcement. He did know that, and we've noticed that the movements of this particular group have changed over the past few months. We suspect they're making some big moves in the drug trade, so for now we're just watching them. However, what you and the girl have shared with us will be added to evidence, and when that time comes that we nail them, we'll need Eri here to testify. Izuku looked at Eri, slightly surprised that they would play the waiting game, but that's the power of the big picture, and it's not like he won't pay for what he's done to Eri, so for now he would have to roll with it. Okay, but in the meantime what about Eri? Normally she'd be sent to a foster home, but the way she clings to you like a lifeline gives me the impression that she'd feel safest with you. So my question to you is, would your family be willing to take her in until we've concluded our case? I'm certain that my mom won't mind, plus we have an extra room so she can have her own space. I also promised that I would protect her, and I like to keep my promises. Alright, call your mother and tell her we're bringing you home and also confirm that she'll be fine with this arrangement. Yes, sir, but before any of that, you want to tell us why you had almost 900k yen on you? He asked, giving him a piercing look. Izuku knew this question was coming. He had to empty his pockets when he came in here. Well, I have a friend and he comes from a very rich family. We were playing video games and he started betting money, then he lost it, so he bet more to win it back, lost again, and that's how I ended up with that much. Signs of an early gambling addiction. I'm trying to help him kick it. He said casually as he seemed convincing. The officers didn't seem too convinced, but they didn't press him on it. All right, said one of the as they left Izuku alone with Eri. After a while they loaded up in a squad car and drove to the hotel to pick up Taku. Luckily Izuku called him and told him this might happen before he went to the station, so he had plenty of time to put away anything suspicious when Izuku and the cops came to the door. Taku answered the door eating a pizza wearing a tank top. Izuku explained the situation like he didn't already know, so they grabbed their bags and checked out. Luckily Taku was able to get some of his money back. Then they were in the car with 2 medium pizzas, one with double pepperoni and another with extra pepperoni and bacon. Eri sat in the middle of Izuku and Taku when he got in the car, giving her a warm, welcoming smile as he offered her some pizza. After hearing her stomach rumble, she accepted the food and talked to Taku as they drove to Mizutofu. They got out as they arrived at the Midoriya residence with Inko Midoriya opening the door. She sees her son carrying a little girl while Takumi is next to him along with some police officers. She let them in, and while sitting in the living room the cops explained the situation to the mother and she agreed to take in Eri for the time being. After letting them know they'll be working with Mizutofu PD to keep tabs on the girl and update them on information. Apparently Eri doesn't know her own quirk, so they'll be sending a quirk doctor to the house on Monday. After Inko answered some questions the officers left. She waited for a moment before confronting the 2 teens and little girl sitting in her living room. She walks in the room and gives both Izuku and Takumi the mom look. She walks up to Eri and puts a hand on her head, giving her a smile that was warm and accepting. You're safe now, she said as her emerald eyes met red ones as she took a breath. I've accepted this. It's late, we'll talk about this in the morning. Off to bed, all of you. That wasn't a request. Taku went to the spare room and Izuku and Eri went to his room. He didn't change his clothes as they just laid in his bed. Eri hugged onto him as she quickly fell asleep while Izuku was thinking about everything that happened tonight. I found what I was looking for and then some. AFO, just who are you? If he can steal quirks and keep them, I can only imagine what he can do. There are multiple Nomu as we suspected, but why the hell do this to people? What's your game? His thoughts then drift to his former senpai. Akaza, what happened to you after you were expelled? That Nomu was undoubtedly you. Anger began to build in him. AFO, just how many people have you taken from, experimented on? I'll bet those were your plans for me and Overhaul too. He turns to the little girl peacefully drifting off to sleep. Overhaul, he thought. Had he known then what he knows now, he'd have taken that monster down along with the Nomu and AFO. The next time he saw the Yakuza boss he was definitely going to punch him. He knew it was only a matter of time before he faced these 2 men, and one will not let them get away with this. Watching Eri sleep seemed to calm his anger. From the moment he looked into her eyes and saw her pain he swore he would protect her, and it's a promise he'll see through. If he can't save Eri, one small child who ran for someone to help her, How could he ever call himself a hero? She found him, not one, but Izuku. And he would be her hero. So much happened in this one day alone. He fought the hero killer, stopped a hijacking and plenty of other crimes today. Momo was now his girlfriend, his investigation was fruitful and he got the name of the true enemy, and now he's taken in someone who needs him. He closed his eyes and let him sleep after a very long day. Chapter 16 Vigilante is just another word for hero. Izuku woke up the next morning, feeling energized the moment he opened his eyes. Turning to his right he saw a pair of big red eyes looking at him. Eri didn't say anything and he could tell she'd been watching him for a while as she looked unsure of what to do. He raised up and smiled at the child. "Good morning, Eri." She then seemed confused as she tilted her head slightly. "Good morning?" Izuku's smile didn't waver. "It's what you say to someone when you see them in the morning." "Oh, okay," she said in understanding. "Good morning," she said, sounding more sure this time. "That's how you do it. Come on, let's see if everyone else is awake." Eri took his hand as they went to the living room. They found Inko in the kitchen making breakfast. The TV was on and Taku was playing with his phone on the couch. Looking from his phone he saw his friend and the girl. "Good morning you two." Eri stepped up and looked at the graynette. "Good morning. It is a good morning, isn't it?" He responded to the girl before turning to Izuku. "Last night was a long one, huh?" We've had longer," he answered before going into the kitchen to find his mother making breakfast. The smell of good food permeated the room. "Good morning, Mom." She turned to her son. "Good morning, Izuku." She smiled looking down at the little girl. "Good morning, Eri. Did you sleep well last night?" Eri made eye contact with the woman. "Yes. I'm happy to hear that. Breakfast will be ready in a bit, so you can relax until then," she said as she got back to cooking. Izuku got himself a glass of water and an apple while also giving one to Eri as he sat on the couch and watched TV. The news was on and talks of his actions from yesterday were all over. Multiple videos of him stopping the hijacking were what everyone was talking about. The police and the airline held a press conference to talk about the investigation into the incident, and they were able to confirm that all three hijackers had been under some sort of mind control. As Izuku watched he thought back to the bees that he came from the hijackers, the same ones that blew up after he caught them. So that explains that. I suspected as much, he thought, but what every outlet was covering was his fight with Stain. Their confrontation was all over the news for everyone to see and hear. Everyone saw how one saved Ingenium, they heard everything that they said. He doesn't regret his choice of words at all, as he told Stain his only mistake was when he chose to kill false heroes instead of showing others what a hero is. People were interviewed in the street and asked about their opinions of one's actions from yesterday. A reporter walked the streets and asked the question, "What do you think about one and what he did yesterday?" Two young women came on screen first. "One is a hero. He may not be a pro but he helps people because he wants to," said one of them. The reporter responded, "True, but what he's doing is still illegal." Semantics. Say what you want but I'd hate to think about what would have happened yesterday if he wasn't there. He stopped a plane in mid-air then carried it to the airport for heaven's sake. What do you think about the hero killer Stain? I watched the video last night with my brother and when you really think about what he said, he's not entirely wrong in his words. One of them answered. The other stepped in. I saw Mount Lady's debut. In hindsight she looked happier with the attention rather than stopping a guy from causing chaos. A middle-aged man and his young son came up next. He saved a lot of people. It's not his job to do any of this but he does it anyway. That's a good and a bad thing because the kids are watching and looking up to him. He looked down at his son as he said the last part. The reporter put the mic to his face. Hey kid, what do you think of one? I think he's really cool. The boy smiled as he exclaimed. More than pros? He's even cooler than All Might. Why? Because he can fly and he always helps people. When the pros try to stop him he goes boom. And he's off to help someone else. That's why he's the coolest. Two teenage boys came on screen next. I watched his fight with the hero killer like 3 times, and, don't misunderstand, he was wrong for killing people but he's kinda right about heroes. A lot just care more about celebrity statues than saving people. Said one of them. I'm a fan of one and support him because he's not like that. Unlike every pro, helping and saving people isn't his job, he does it because he wants to and he's really good at it. Answered the other. A middle-aged man came up next. I wouldn't call him a villain necessarily, but he is a criminal. It's fortunate he was able to save so many lives yesterday, but this is not a good look for licensed heroes for a vigilante to constantly show them up like this. What do you think they should do? The reporter asked. All they really have are two options. Either let him keep doing what he's doing and ignore the technicality of vigilante because he's just that good, or you could make a collective attempt at capturing or at least unmasking him. Given what we've seen, the former of those options would be the simplest. A woman with white hair, yellow eyes and snake features came up next. Just give him a special hero license that lets him keep doing what he's been doing without having to expose himself. Problem solved, she said, sounding annoyed. Katsuki Bakugo came on the screen next. The hell do I care about some All Might wannabe? You'll forget all about him when I debut as a pro. He said smugly into the camera. Didn't you place second in the Udata Sports Festival? The reporter asked. The blonde's eyes went white with anger. That ponytail bitch just got lucky. You calling me a weakling? Huh. I'll kick your dash. The camera cut and went back to the three reporters ready to give their take. Well, people sure do have their own opinions about our illegal hero's recent actions. Miko Fujioka commented. Joining us this morning we have renowned hero expert and critic Aorio Kuraishizu. Happy to have you. She smiled at the man. It's a pleasure to be here. Fujioka, Yugo, Katakuri, thank you for having me. First off, it's good to have you on the show. I've had you on my radio show multiple times and it's always a good talk. You're a man of intelligence, character as well as insight. Katakuri stated. Thank you, I do my best, but I want to know what your opinion is on the menace named one? He said. Completely serious. Well, we just saw several citizens giving their opinions on his most recent actions. That angry child at the end aside for a moment, this just continues to be a bad look for pro heroes. You think so? Fujioka asked. Once again one gets to the right place at the right time without a single hero able to help or be needed in the situation. He completely handled the incidents and it truly is getting to a point where his vigilante status is irrelevant. The fox woman perked up. I don't know if I'd go that far, but once again he's done something very All Might-esque. If not for that woman's intervention the hero killer would be in Tartarus right now. I agree. I've been covering heroes for over 20 years and I've never seen, nor expected that someone like this would just show up and do everything that one has done. Yugo perked up next. By now the video of his fight with the hero killer is making rounds across the country. What do you think of it? First off, let me be clear, my heart goes out to those affected by Stain's actions. He is very much wrong in his decision to hurt others. But what you can't deny is that the industry has been largely about celebrity statues for a long time. It's a hard job and it's not for everyone, but even though it is a job, never forget what that job entails, which is using your abilities to save and protect people. Katakuri narrowed his eyes. So you think that one is more heroic than pros because it's not his job? I've been following his actions for months now, and I haven't seen him show off, boast, or do anything for the sake of praise and attention. This is something he chooses to do. I even downloaded his app. There's a feature where you can watch POV clips of what he's doing during cases. He shows up to help or save someone and he moves on. He even takes time to converse with people on the street. From what I've seen, all he cares about is helping people. Kuraishizu, just so I'm clear. As hero expert, you are saying that we should ignore the actions of this vigilante, and just let him do what he wants? Regardless of the hero regulations or quirk laws that he breaks on a daily basis, he should get a pass because he's good at what he's doing. Is that what you're saying? Katakuri asked, giving the man a heavy look. It would be wonderful if you were a licensed pro. We can't condone vigilantism, but you can't denounce his actions as heroic. Why someone as powerful as he is isn't a pro is a mystery, the reasons for which I'm sure make sense to him. Katakuri was angered and disappointed by that answer. Well, I can denounce his actions as unheroic, he said, getting the attention of all at the table as well as everyone watching. I fail to see heroism in the actions of an individual who is so arrogant he feels he can do whatever he wants. We have rules and regulations that govern licensed individuals to save lives. He's messing around with people's livelihood, taking work from honest, hard-working, more capable heroes just so he can play hero is a huge problem for me. Yugo rolled his eyes at his co-worker's words. Katakuri, you're free to think what you want, but if most licensed pros were as capable as you say, his presence would be irrelevant. The police have linked hundreds of cases back to back him, and his actions have had a major impact on uncovering many other illegal activities. He stopped what would have been a national tragedy for heaven's sake, potentially saving thousands, and would have ended the hero killer's reign of terror if not for outside forces. He exclaimed. I'm with Kuroishi. His reasons for doing this definitely make sense to him, and there is clearly a reason he's not a pro. Fujioka smiled as she prepared to give her take. We've talked so much about him on this show you'd think he couldn't surprise us anymore, but lo and behold he does just that. We've all seen the footage of him stopping the hijacking and fighting the hero killer, while also hearing the public's opinion as well as the thoughts of those directly involved, and I personally think that we can call one what he is, a hero. There's still tension between him and the pros, but it's clearly just coming from a place of envy and jealousy. It's a simple solution to a simple problem: work harder and be a hero. What Stain said wasn't entirely all bad, and what we should take from it is to champion true, traditional heroism. Katakuri linked his hands, leaning his forehead into them with his eyes closed. I just can't with you people. This gets the attention of the others. How am I the only one who sees this menace for what he is? He uses his quirk when and however he wants. This sets an extremely bad precedent. He conducts hero operations, deliberately interfering with the goals of heroes and police. What is good about that? I've even heard from a reliable source that he was spotted at the UA Sports Festival. Kamui Woods, Death Arms, and MT Lady, being the responsible heroes they are, told him to get lost because as security they rightfully maintained an area free of criminals. I heard he was there too, but when he was asked to leave he did. What's your point? Yugo asked. The point is he endangered the lives of everyone by being there, just casually eating food in an arena full of heroes. He exclaimed. Kuroishi raised an eyebrow. Are you saying that he endangered people because they could have got caught in the crossfire if a fight broke out? That's exactly what I'm saying. Luckily he didn't argue when asked to leave, but imagine if Endeavor saw him? His feelings about one are well known. What if he just attacked him with no questions asked, just trying to arrest him? The hero expert thought for a moment. That is something Endeavor would do. But it didn't, so it's fine. Plus if that did happen it would have been Endeavor's fault. I agree. Fujioka stated. The show then cut to break with everyone at the Midoriya house taking in everything that was just heard. And the popularity grows. Taku stated from the couch. Inko spoke up from the kitchen. Some things will never change, I guess. The man loves to slam one, but he's never actually had a conversation with him. Well, you can't convince everyone. Izuku said with a small smile. Izuku, who's one? Eri asked innocently. One, he's a hero. He answered her with a smile. But why did he talk like he was a bad guy? Well, one, he's a hero, but he's not a pro-hero, he's a vigilante. Eri seemed to understand with the exception of the last word. What's a vigilante? A vigilante is someone who fights crime without a license. But even though one isn't a pro, that doesn't mean he's a bad guy or a villain. Does that make sense? Eri took a moment to register his words before she nodded her head. Inko smiles at this scene from the kitchen. Breakfast is ready, everyone. They all sat at the table with a spread of delicious food in front of each of them. On each of their trays they had pork croquettes, rice, miso soup, and mixed fruit. They all dug in with Eri having stars in her eyes after the first bite. Inko smiled at this as she also enjoyed her food. After they were done eating they put on a show called Glitter Squad for Eri to watch in the living room while Izuku, Takumi and Inko went into her room. Izuku and Taku faced his mother in her room, who was giving them both the same mom look from last night. She eyed both teenage boys with her arms crossed. Now that we have a moment, I want to know what you two did last night, and I mean right now, she said in a stern voice that made both boys tremble from how unfamiliar it was. They gave her a full play-by-play of everything that went down last night from each of their perspectives. Inko took in the story of everything leading up to them arriving with police to her door last night and got a full grip of the situation. So, basically you two infiltrated an underground fighting tournament and got a hold of bullets that can take away quirks. She then turned to Izuku, and you met the organizer after he kidnapped you, most likely to steal your non-existent quirk, someone called AFO, and you only found this out after you helped the man who was hurting Eri fight what's called a Nomu. Her son nodded his head. A man tried to rob you at gunpoint, you stopped him, gave money, then you met Eri, and that's how everything happened that brought us here? Yes. Her son answered. You made a lot of money at that tournament, right? The mother asked, eyeing her son. Why yes. He stuttered as he answered. Inko outstretched her hand while giving him a serious look. Izuku sighed before he went to his room and grabbed all the money he made last night. Inko took it and gave it a quick count, seeing that he had 840k yen. She took out 470k and handed 370k to her son. I'm keeping this half. But take this and spend no less than 50k to buy as many clothes and other essentials as you can for Eri. In the meantime I'll give her a bath and get her acquainted. Okay, but we don't know the first thing about buying clothes for girls. Izuku exclaimed, stunned by the request. Taku perked up. Relax, I called Yaoyorozu and asked her to come over. She should be here in about an hour. She can make clothes and a wig for Eri, then we can go out and get what we need. These words made Izuku relax a little. 3 days later, Izuku woke up to a pair of red eyes looking at him. Good morning Aizu and I. Eri said to him with a small smile. Good morning Eri. He responded. Though they had given her their spare bedroom and bought her clothes, that didn't stop her from sneaking into his bed. This was the second time she's done this, so he figured he may as well accept it. Izuku got up, got he and Eri dressed and headed off to school. After school Izuku and Taku went to the lab to study the bullets they bought from Shiosaikai. They exit the elevator after making it to the bottom. So how is Eri adjusting to life at the Midoriya house? She's doing okay. Momo seemed to hit it off with her and Eri seemed to like her. In the green wig Momo made for her, seriously minus the horn in that wig she looks like she could be my biological sister. Yeah, your dad's got red eyes right? Same shade as Eri's. Mom called him and told him about the situation. All he knows is that I ran into Eri on the street and took her in to save her from some bad people. Taku raised an eyebrow. Wait, your dad still doesn't know that you're one? He'll be home in 2 weeks. I'll try to find the right time to tell him then. It's a convo we should definitely have in person, naturally. A doctor came to see Eri, right? How did that go? It went well. She was a bit nervous understandably, but I was able to help her get through it. They did some tests and it turns out Eri's quirk is called Rewind. Her horn stockpiles power and using that she can return anything she touches to a previous state. That sounds powerful and a little dangerous. And I also assume you've run through all the various ways she could use that. You know me so well. Izuku responded with a smile. At this point, from what I can gather, Eri's quirk would be perfect for healing. She could return a broken limb to before it was broken, rewind a sick person to before they were sick, maybe even reverse the aging process. According to the doctors, her quirk affects things on the cellular level, and as far as we know she has no allergies. That'll grow into one busted quirk, Taku said before they made it to the supercomputer. They both sat down and prepared to study the bullets. To the surprise of both boys, the makeup of these bullets were very simplistic. However, their study of the bullets made them both incredibly angry, as they found that these bullets were completely composed of human blood. Izuku continued hitting keys on the computer, his anger building. There's no denying it, these bullets were made entirely from a person. The effect is someone's power. Taku stopped what he was doing and leaned back in his chair as he said yeah, in a sad tone. As these words and the findings of their study set in, both boys locked eyes with each other, a shocked expression written on both their faces. You don't think? Taku asked. A quirk that can return a body to a previous state, affecting things on a cellular level, maybe even before quirk genes were a thing. Izuku said, horror and anger rising as his thoughts came together. Taku saw his friend, they were clearly on the same page. She has scars lining both her arms and legs. In this superhuman society literally anything is possible. He said, his thoughts angering him. The two looked at each other as their thoughts seemed to come together. That son of a bitch. They both said in unison. 30 minutes later they were both at the Midoriya house. Taku had his laptop and everything he needed as they entered the house. They found Eri at the kitchen table with Inko practicing her writing. She turns to the two boys when they enter the room. Hi Aizu and I. Hi Taku and I. What up itty bitty? Taku smiled in response to the girl. Hey Eri, what are you doing? Izuku asked. Mom's teaching me how to write. I can write my name now. She said, proud of herself. Izuku smiled. Really? Let me see it. Stepping to the table, Izuku looked at the work Eri had been doing to learn to write. She's been practicing writing her name over and over, and for a kid just learning, her handwriting is surprisingly legible. This looks really good, Eri. Keep it up. As this was happening, Taku was speaking to Inko in the other room just out of earshot. She seems to be adjusting well. She pretty much clings to Izuku, but she's slowly warming up to me. She's actually really smart and she comprehends things quickly. It didn't take her long to write down her own name. I heard her refer to you as Mom. Does that mean she's staying? She relies on Izuku on many levels. I spoke to my husband yesterday about it and he's actually eager to meet her. She looked at her son and the little girl he saved, having a good conversation. I'm sure she's not going anywhere. She said with a smile. That's good. Taku said as he reached into his bag and pulled out a bottle labeled Scar Removal Cream and handed it to Inko. Here, Mrs. Midoriya. Inko looked at the bottle, her eyes surprised at the label. This is a cream that Grandpa made years ago, but he assured me it still works and it works fast. Just rub this on Eri for the next week or so and her scars, at least the physical ones, will fade. The mother nodded as they heard Izuku speak to Eri. Eri, you know how the doctors needed some blood to do tests yesterday? She nods at his question. Well, we need to do one more test, Taku. He called out and his friend came to the little girl. Hey lil Eri, I need just a little bit of blood from you. I promise it won't hurt, just a little prick and that's all. Eri looked at him hesitantly before Izuku took her hand and looked into her eyes. Don't worry, I'm right here with you just like before. He said in a tone that made her feel at ease as she nodded at Taku. Taku pricks her finger and quickly collects the sample of blood. See, that was all we needed. Izuku lightly shakes Eri. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? Taku sits on the couch and immediately goes to work as he inserts the sample into his laptop. After a couple of seconds his results come back and his eyes narrow. A perfect match. Eri seemed confused by this. What's a perfect match? She asked innocently. Izuku didn't answer her question as he gently pulled her into a hug that was warm and comforting. Eri reciprocated the hug, though she was confused. She fully welcomed it. Izuku's green eyes met her red ones. Eri, you remember when we met, and I told you I was right here because you ran for help? Eri nods her head while keeping eye contact. I'm sorry for not finding you sooner. He deepens the hug and Eri, though still a little confused, feels warm in his embrace. The doorbell rang and Inko went to answer the door, welcoming Momo into the house. Hello, Mrs. Midoriya. The girl bowed her head in greeting. Inko smiled at seeing his son's girlfriend. Come on in, Yayorozu. Momo told her she could call her by her first name since she and Izuku are dating now. She entered the apartment to see her boyfriend hugging Eri and Fujiwara looking at his laptop. She sensed the tension in the air as she called out to Izuku, slightly concerned. He left Eri and went to hug his girlfriend. Hey Momo, I'm happy you came over. I wanted to spend some time with you since you took the day off. Hello Eri, how are you? Good. She answers. Izuku takes Momo's hand as they sit on the couch. Did I walk in on something? Momo asks. Izuku sighs a bit. We just found out some things. I'll tell you later. Alright. She said as she laid against her boyfriend with his arms around her waist. She sees Inko walk past them. By the way, Mrs. Midoriya, my mother wants us all to have dinner together. We can do that. My husband, we'll be home in 2 weeks so we can do it then. She exclaimed excitedly. I'll let my mother know. I'll be doing my internship next week so we can do it after that. Speaking of your internship, do you know who you're going with? Izuku asked. I received the most offers after the sports festival, but I think I'm going to go with Mirko. That should be a good fit for you. She could teach you a lot. Plus I can visit you and hang out. I'll be with her to learn and train, so that's why I plan to focus on Izuku. That doesn't mean Rising Sky's strongest disciple can't help you out. He said playfully. By the way, I'm curious, how's it feel being famous? I know people definitely know you now. Momo blushed a little. I received a bit of praise on the train ride the first day back to school after the festival. Some guys told me they were in love with me. It was flattering but really weird. Izuku's eyes widened. What? Izuku exclaimed as he tickled Momo's ribs. I thought I was the beast to your beauty. What about me, Momo? He playfully exclaimed as he kept tickling his girlfriend. The girl shifted and shook in his arms as she laughed. Inko and Taku looked at this scene with a smile. 1 week later, one had just finished stopping some Sunday drivers. He handed them to the police after they showed up and took them away. He did some parkour across several city blocks looking for action. Today hasn't been a very active one, relatively peaceful, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Several people have asked to take pictures with him the past week, with many complimenting on his new costume, and while it's not his thing he doesn't mind. Still on the roof he looks to his right and he sees a familiar toddler sitting on a bus stop after getting off a recently departed bus. The child looks confused and surprised at where he is. He is clearly lost. Taka? What is he doing here? At Sakai High School there is a nursery where the young children of the faculty are taken care of. The school has one hired worker and any students involved are a part of the Babysitters Club. It has 2 members and 6 children, 5 toddler age and 1 infant. Ryuichi Kashima and Hayato Kamitani are the only student members, largely because their little brothers are in the daycare. Kashima is a friend of Izuku's as he used to be a student at Rising Sky. He left the dojo when he lost his parents in a tragic plane crash. The chairwoman of Sakai took in both him and his little brother, and Ryuichi had to help in the daycare. Though they're in different classes, Izuku in S and Ryuichi in C, they were still friends, so Izuku, Taku and Kiyuki help out in the daycare now and then, plus the kids there are pretty cool. Yeah, that's Kamitani's little brother, and Ms. Kamitani's second son. We hung out with him and the other kids in the Babysitters Club. You don't think he just hopped on a bus and went wherever, do you? It looks that way. Stay posted, I'm gonna help him out, he said before flipping off the roof and landed in front of the child, startling him as he almost fell back. Hey little one, you look lost, he asked with a raised eyebrow. The toddler looked up at the green-clad hero. Who are you? The boy asks. One crouched down, getting on his level. Are you running an errand on your own or something? He asked with a welcoming smile. The little boy's eyes slightly narrowed as he answered. Taka ran away from home. This surprised the hero. Why do you want to run away from home? Don't you have a nice mom and older brother? They're not nice, the child exclaimed. Taka paused for a moment as tears began to well up in his eyes before he burst into tears and wailed. One looked at the child, slowly getting a clear picture of the situation. Taka, do you like baseball? He stopped crying and looked at the hero. A little bit. Michan plays a lot. Don't you like to play with him? Yes, he answered, lowering his head. You said you were running away. Does that mean you don't love them anymore? Tears welled in his eyes. But, Mommy hates me. So, he exclaimed. Why would you think that? One asked sympathetically. She won't buy me carp jet. He began crying again. These words put all the pieces together for the hero as he thought. Carp jet? Oh yeah, I think I've seen the commercial for that. It's a new toy on the market right now. He looked at the crying child and sighed as he picked him up. Taka, you're a guy. You shouldn't cry over something like this. The toddler's eyes widen, gripping the hero's shoulder as he remembers his brother telling him these same exact words. Taka is not crying, he exclaimed defensively. Also, running away just because you can't get what you want isn't smart. Do you really think your mom and brother aren't worried sick about you? The little boy lowered his head at his words. The two sat down on the bench as one used his hero phone to search for an individual and her number. Finally finding what he was looking for, he called, and after a moment she answered. Hello. Hello ma'am, this is the hero one. Would you be Shizuka Kamitani by any chance? This is she. Why are you calling me? She asked, confused. Well, I'm sure I've found something you've lost. My son threw a tantrum and just took off. You found him? She asked hopefully. Yes ma'am. I found him by coincidence and we had a talk. Please send me your address and I can bring him home. Can you put Taka on the phone? Yes ma'am. Phone for you, he said as he handed the phone to Taka, who took in his small hands. Mommy, I'm sorry, he said with tears in his eyes. The mother holds back tears on the other side of the call. You idiot. Come home quickly. Taka handed the phone back to one who heard everything. He hung up and put the phone away. He got the address and the two sat on the bench. He patted the boy's head. Let this be a lesson, Taka. It may not always be perfect, but at the end of the day, there's no place like home. The little boy nods at his words. One suddenly senses an attack coming as he quickly and gently grabs Taka and jumps from the bench as it is wrapped in wood. He landed holding Taka in his arms and sensing malice from above. He jumped back then up, avoiding a punch from Death Arms that cracked the pavement where he previously stood. Still in the air he notices a shadow getting bigger and bigger. Angered with the situation, he spins and throws a hard kick at the giant fist that was about to come down on him, knocking it aside. As he lands he sees Kamui Woods and Death Arms staring him down. He doesn't turn to look at her, but he could hear Mount Lady complaining about how her hand was now broken. "What the hell is wrong with you? You could have hurt this kid." Taka looked at the two pros, clearly freaked out by what just happened. There were a good number of people around and many of them saw what just happened. Kamui Woods had a look of surprise and shame as when he struck from behind the bench he truly didn't see the toddler sitting beside him, and the way he held him. Death Arms didn't see him when he jumped from the roof to punch him, and now that same child was looking at them with a look of surprise and fear. "What are you even doing with that kid?" one Death Arm asked. "He got lost and I was just about to take him home." "Is this where we've gotten to? Are you people really willing to endanger innocent people just to get at me? Say and think what you want about me, I'd never do that." Both heroes were clearly ashamed, but they kept their composure. "Well, if you just..." Kamui began. "Shut up." One cut him off, making him flinch. "I'm not even gonna let you try and justify this." The then looked at the boy in his arms. "Taka, are you okay?" "Aha!" he answered, a little shaken up. "Looks like I just missed a party." Came a familiar female voice behind one. Turning around he saw Mirko and Momo walking towards him. Seeing the two warmed him a bit. "Hey Mirko." "And you are?" he asked Momo, meaning her hero name. "I am the everything hero, Creati. I'm interning with Mirko." She answered casually. "I see." He answered before turning to Mirko. "All you missed was these three being reckless just to get at me," he said in an angry, annoyed tone as he looked at the two male heroes. Mirko looked at the aftermath of the recent altercation. The wood-wrapped bench, the fist-shaped crack in the sidewalk, the heroine nursing her hand to her right, and the little boy one was holding in his arms. She got a clear picture of what had just happened. "This is next-level pathetic, you three know that, right?" she said with a mocking grin at the three heroes. Kamui would look down in shame and Death Arms just turned his head. One turned to the injured female hero. "For what it's worth, sorry about that Mount Lady," he said with sincerity. "Tell it to my broken hand one," she exclaimed. He turned back to Mirko and Momo. "Anyway, I have to take this kid home. After that I could join you two on patrol. Or maybe we can grab a bite to eat when you're done. I know the best udon shop in the city," he said with a smile. The rabbit woman smiled at him while the teen girl's eyes widened a bit at his words. "Is this your way of asking me out?" "Really? With my intern right here?" Mirko asked, cocking her eyes at Momo. He smiled as he answered. "What?" he said dramatically, "as if I could be so bold. I just wanted to grab a bite with one of my very very few hero friends." He then glances at Momo. "Plus I have a girlfriend, and this offer very much includes you, Creati." This made the girl smile. Mirko smiled, but her ears dropped a bit when he said he had a girlfriend. "Wow, way to build a girl up just to drop her one," she said with fake disappointment. "And it broke my heart to do it," he said, sarcastically. "So are we on? You said udon, right? Is that your favorite or you're just in the mood for it?" "Just in the mood," he responded casually. Can't remember the last time I had udon." "I don't mind. What about you?" she asked, looking at Momo. "Yes, udon is fine," she answered casually. "Great, I'll text you when I'm done with this. Come on Taka." The little boy pumped his fist and screamed yeah as one jumped to the rooftops. One took off into a free run. He used the full repertoire of his parkour skills. 360 spins, wall running, triangle jumps on street lights. He did acrobatic flips as he jumped over buildings. He jumped off a building, landed on a street light, and jumping to the one across from it he did a spin flip and landed perfectly. He put Taka down, who had the biggest smile on his face, asking to go again, but one smiled at the boy as they walked down the street towards an apartment complex. After a minute they found Ms. Kamitani, Hayato and Ryuichi holding his brother Kotaro waiting for them. Taka ran into his mother's arms, apologizing as she held him. "Thank you one, for finding my son today. I'm glad I could help. He looked lost and he was no trouble at all," one said with a smile. Hayato had a question for the hero. "Hey one, how did you call my mom?" "Well, my hero phone has special features, one similar to a sat phone. That's why when I called I needed to confirm it was her." The sharp-faced teen narrowed his eyes before sighing. Oh well, you're not a creeper so it's whatever. I have to go, you all have a good day in Taka? The boy turned to the hero. Remember what we talked about? He threw up both his hands as he exclaimed, yeah. One gave him a fist bump before flying back to Mirko and Momo with Skywalk. Flying through the city he senses a disturbance and heads over to find thieves robbing the supermarket. The police were outside as they had taken hostages inside. He used Phase 1 to get into the building and once inside he saw several citizens and employees being held captive by a man with bazookas for hands while 8 men in masks were loading stuff into bags. Invisibrate. Vibrating his body he became invisible and in a flash of speed he knocked out the 2 in the back of the store before swiftly knocking out every thief in the aisles before the gun-handed man's guns, suddenly shattered. He roared in pain and the hostages were startled when one suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The final man's eyes widen in horror before everything goes dark after one slugs him in the stomach. The police and heroes who arrived at the scene are surprised when people start coming out of the building. As they enter they see one restraining all of the thieves. Hello everyone. He smiled at the crowd. The police and heroes look at him annoyed before they collect the thieves and arrest them. 2 in particular walked up to him. It was Sir Night-Eye and a blonde-haired hero in a white suit with a red cape and 1 million on his chest. They went to the side as the hostages were giving statements. 1. I've wanted to speak with you for some time now. Night-Eye said while wearing his naturally intimidating look. Sir Night-Eye wants to speak with me? I'm honored. How can I help you? He asked with a smile, his hero nerd slightly slipping out. The older man tilted his glasses as he looked at the vigilante. Your pathetic attempt to copy All Might's catchphrase, you say I got this. Stop doing it. He said sternly. One kept his smile but opened his mouth from shock. The blonde hero next to him spoke up. For what it's worth, One, I think it's pretty cool. Really declares that there's nothing to worry about, he exclaimed with a smile. One smiled as he rubbed the back of his head. Well, I admire All Might. Some people have said it's pretty lame, but the positivity outweighs the negativity so I can live with that. That's the spirit. The blonde hero exclaimed with a thumbs up. I do my best. Who are you? He asked the blonde hero. He poked his thumb into his chest. I'm Lemillion. Nice to meet you. One responded as he extended a handshake, which the blonde took. Night-Eye spoke up. You said that you admire All Might. What is it you hope to accomplish through your vigilantism? All I want is to be a hero. One answered confidently. Meaning, saving, protecting and helping people to the absolute best of my abilities. I'm not interested in being a symbol of peace or replacing All Might, but if I can be a hero who can make people feel safe, show how to understand others and smile, then it's all worth it for me. Just a hero, that's all I want to be. Night-Eye took in the vigilante's words with several thoughts going through his head. You don't want to be a symbol, just a hero. The vigilante nodded his head while Mirio smiled at him. Night-Eye remembered a conversation he had with All Might as he asked his next question. 1. Why exactly would you indulge in vigilantism instead of pursuing a hero career? Well, the term vigilante means nothing to me. I'm a hero as far as I'm concerned. But to answer your question, it's my dream and this is the only way I can live it. Night-Eye was surprised at his word as he continued. How is being an illegal hero your only option? Do you have a criminal history? No, nothing like that. If I wanted to be the hero I always wanted to be, this is just how it has to be for me. The older man's eyes shifted to slight confusion. And why is that? One sighed before answering. I just have it different, Night-Eye. Night-Eye still didn't understand. How is it you have multiple quirks and how many do you have? Night-Eye asked. Irrelevant question, Night-Eye. But speaking of multiple quirks, have you ever heard of a man called All for One? Night-Eye's eyes narrow at these words. How do you know that name? Night-Eye asked. He could see the man's uneasiness as he answered. Long story short, I know he's connected to the League of Villains that attacked UA, and I know his power. Who exactly is he? 1. I need you to come with us. Night-Eye said in a stern voice. Sorry, Night-Eye, not interested in being led to a trap today. Let's do it tomorrow. The man's eyes narrowed. I wasn't asking, and you don't know what you're up against. Trust me, I can handle him. Had I known who he was at the time I would have taken him down right then, after all. I got this, he exclaimed before jumping, becoming intangible and phasing through the ceiling and coming out on the roof. Maybe he'll just tell me what I need to know next time we meet. He thought as he prepared to leap away. He suddenly felt a presence and turned just to see Lemillion shoot out from the ground covered in yellow lightning. He stands up giving him a fiery smile. I had to see it to believe it. You really can phase through walls, he exclaimed. And you can become intangible too, but how does the lightning fare into that? One asked, genuinely curious. My quirk has multiple properties. Cool, thanks. But seriously One, you should come with us. Maybe some other time, Lemillion. All Might's former sidekick trying to trap me after I ask about an ominous villain. Normally I'd intentionally spring a trap like that, but not today. I swear it's not a trap. Sir just wants to talk because AFO is a serious threat. Actually until recently we assumed he was dead. Dead huh? One said as he held his chin, thinking to himself. Well, he's now one of many people on my radar and I'll handle him in time. Well, you've got confidence at least. I try. But what about you? Are you a new hero? I've never heard of you, but you look familiar. I'm actually still a student at UA. I'm doing my work study with Sir and I've been working with him for over a year now. One took in his words before remembering his face. That's how I know you. You're the UA Sports Festival flasher, aren't you? Ha ha ha. 3 years running. I've had some weird times at UA, but it's always been really fun. One smiled. You're at the top hero school in Japan, if not the world. You better enjoy it. I know, right? He exclaimed. As they continue talking, One quickly turns around just in time to see several balls of energy flying towards several buildings. Following their paths, he sees 5 people flying above the city. In a flash of speed he was gone, shocking Lemillion, who saw the balls of energy being swatted away in the distance. One had just sent away the final blast and kicking off the air in a flash he faces the group of flying people. He eyes the group and is stunned by their appearance as he crosses his arms. I know Tengu are cool and everything, but firing on the city's a bit much, don't you think? He asked sarcastically. The largest among them stepped up. Well, if it isn't One? Just who we wanted to see. Well, attacking my city and threatening people is a way to get me over. The blue Tengu spoke up. We know, that's why we did it, he said, smiling menacingly. Who even are you people? The most muscular, red Tengu smiled. I am the Sky King. And this is the Sky Gang. We've come here to crush you, then this city will belong to us, he said with a wicked grin. If you think you can then be my guest, One said before readying himself. Sky King flew behind his group as he commanded them to destroy the hero. All 4 of them rushed the hero. In a flash One blitzed past the henchman and punched Sky King in his long nose, breaking it. The red man cried out in pain as he clutched his face. One quickly threw back a kick that hit the yellow Tengu in the face, sending him flying. In a flash he was behind the gray Tengu trying to attack him. Tempest kick. He throws a kick sending a large blade of air into the Tengu's back that makes him crash into his injured leader. The 2 fly off as the teal Tengu came at him. One slammed a sickening punch to his gut before punching him in the face, sending him flying. He then rushes after him and lands a right hook kick, then bringing an elbow down on his head, making him land on the roof of a building unconscious. One skywalks back to the remaining Tengu villains with the yellow Tengu rushing to meet him. Both pick up speed clash, their forearms clashing and creating a shockwave. One quickly pummels his opponent with brutal punches before kicking him to the ground and knocking him out. The remaining 3 looked at him in shock. He took down Hawk and Falcon like they were nothing, the blue one said as he sweated nervously. Sky King gritted his teeth. We haven't lost yet. There are 3 of us and 1 of him. We can still take him. One smirked at these words. You're right. Maybe I should even the odds a bit. Flash clone, he said as one by one clones of One started appearing until there were 15 in total. This sudden action made the eyes of the Tengu men go wide as they all smiled at them. They all spoke in unison as they called out Flash Clone Barrage. They all kicked off the air and proceeded to pummel all 3 men across the sky. The sound of each blow could be heard as the 3 villains became like blurring pinballs, being punched, kicked, elbowed and kneed all over for what seemed like eternity. After 10 seconds and a final hit launched all 3 to the ground, the clones began to fade with One beneath the falling men having made 2 more clones. He catches all 3 and lays them on the ground. When he lands, he turns just in time to see Lemillion and Sir Night-Eye making it to the scene. Man, you really can fly, he exclaimed. I have my ways, he said as he turned to the unconscious villains. Whoever these 5 are, their goal today was to draw me out. 5? Night Eye asked. Yeah, there's one on that roof and the other should be over there, he said as he pointed. Keep an eye on these three while I go get them, please. Lemillion gave him a thumbs up while Night Eye just kept his usual look. Half a minute later he came back with both yellow and teal Tengu men on his shoulder. They kept them restrained as the police arrived to take them away. The police gave one a look as he spoke with Night Eye and Lemillion. That was so awesome, Lemillion exclaimed. Sir told me to chase after you, but you left to handle this before I even realized what was going on. Guess I've got more work to do. He smiled as he rubbed the back of his head. I've honed my senses for a very long time. All my training was to be a hero who could save anyone, anywhere from anything, and my time as a hero has only made my senses and skills sharper. When you've worked a city for so long and you know every inch of it, you immediately notice when something's off. From that moment training and instincts take over, so be sure to hone them. The goal should be to stop an incident before it occurs. Got it? You're no hero, One, you're a vigilante. One smiled as he shrugged. Semantics. Night Eye. Night Eye didn't want to admit it, but seeing this young man in action very much reminded him of All Might. How he just took off the moment he knew someone was in danger, how he quickly neutralized the threat, and did it with a smile that assured all that saw it that everything would be okay. Mirio had inherited OFA. He was going to be the symbol of peace when All Might was done. He had everything you could want in a successor for the power, but this vigilante comes out of nowhere, and time after time he shows he's just as good if not better than All Might. And he's not a public figure. He moves in silence, only and always helping those who need help and ask for it. He would try to use foresight in hopes of learning his identity, but the lenses that cover his eyes would make it pointless. Can you tell us everything you know about AFO? Sure. He went on to tell them his entire encounter with All for One, how he wanted answers to the Nomu, and suspected the one in charge of the underground masquerade had answers, how he fought a special Nomu and how he tried to take his quirk but crushed his arm instead. And lastly, how he suspected AFO was connected to the League of Villains. And this is all the information you have? Night Eye asked. All that I'm willing to share, he responded. Night Eye sighed before turning to Lemillion. Come, we're leaving. Lemillion and One did a fist bump before he walked away. Later that day, One stopped a mugging, changed a tire for an elderly couple and helped a blind man cross the street. During all this he texted the name of the udon shop to Mirko and met her and Momo at the shop as he took a break. They ate, laughed and had a good talk with each other. Mirko told him that Momo wasn't a terrible student to have as an intern, but told her for her work study to go to Ryukyu because she's not doing it again. This got a laugh amongst the three. Momo asked One about his day. He told her and she was a bit disappointed she couldn't see any of it. Mirko handled a few cases today and she taught her a bit, but most of her day was spent training at the dojo. Mirko let it be known that she knew they were all sibling students and that she would learn his identity with Momo playing ignorant. By the end of the night, One had a real good time with the two women. After knocking out all the requests on the app, he headed home with Eri already in his bed. Later that night in the Fujiwara lab, Chuntaro Fujiwara was awakened by loud alarms going off in the lab. As annoying as it was, he got up and checked what it could be. He had several alarms set up for various things to notify him if something worth stressing about went down. He walked up to the supercomputer, shut off the alarm and looked to see what the issue was. His eyes widened when he saw what this alarm was about. Takumi! Takumi, wake up! He yelled out as he ran to wake up his grandson. After some shaking he opened his eyes, wondering what the hell was happening. Grandpa, what the hell? He asked, barely awake. Get Midoriya on the phone. While I get Taichi and Megami down here. I can do that, but why? He asked as he wiped his eyes. Long story short, I set up some satellites for the government a few decades ago, and one of those satellites has detected a big ASS meteor that's racked up a solid 9 on the Torino scale. It's most likely going to take out all of Shizuoka and several other prefectures. I'm sure every space and geology association in Japan is all over this, but I wanted Midoriya in the know, because the powers that be will most likely issue an evacuation with no real time to escape. And the point of impact? Takumi asked with wide eyes. Muzutafu, at the Midoriya house. Izuku's phone rings. He reaches over Eri to pick it up. He's really surprised to see Taku calling him so late at night. What's up? He asked sleepily. Taku rapidly spoke to the still sleepy Izuku, explaining the situation. Okay, yes, I can handle it. Hide in the lab if you want. Roughly 5 o'clock today. Alright, I won't go to school. Alright. I'll call you after," he said before hanging up. The noise and the light seemed to wake Eri up. "Who was that?" she asked sleepily. "Don't worry about it, just go back to sleep," Izuku said as he held her, and they both drifted back to sleep. 4:30 p.m. that same day, the city-wide alarm of the meteor was announced a whole 30 minutes before impact, and as expected, people were panicking in the streets. Traffic was jammed all the way to hell as people stood outside their cars looking up at the space rock that was going to level the city and end all of our lives. Several heroes walked the street, many of them looking up with the look of defeat plastered all over their faces. Some people even took this time to loot business for alcohol, while some people were even having sex in their cars or allies, while others accepted the inevitable, while others ran around for some kind of safety. One stood on a building as he watched the chaos below him and the meteor roughly minutes from destroying the entire prefecture. According to Taku, the government planned to have intercontinental missiles fired at the meteor in an attempt to destroy it. But he told him to stay vigilant just in case it failed. As he was thinking, he heard a loud sound. Looking up, he could see the meteor bombarded by missiles. The sound of the missiles hitting the space rock could be heard across the city. The loud crash gave many the hope that the meteor was being reduced to nothing. After the bombardment finished, the site of the meteor was covered by a large cloud of dust. Everyone looking up was looking with hope that they had avoided this situation. To the horror of everyone, the meteor came out of the cloud of dust on fire, but still intact. Everyone immediately went back to panicking. With his enhanced hearing, one could hear many people express their feelings about the situation. Everything he was hearing made him sad, and he was ready to spring into action, but a voice caught his attention. "Nasan, are we going to die?" He heard the voice of a young girl. One looked down to see a young girl hugging her older sister with tears and a look of desperation in her eyes. Both girls had magenta hair and sharp green eyes. The older girl looked roughly his age. She was thin with her hair in a ponytail with a ribbon, while the younger girl looked around 11 or 12, had on a yellow shirt and pink overalls with long pigtails. These words made one need to make his presence known. He flipped off the building and landed in front of the two sisters. "One," the younger sister called out. "I heard what you said, and I felt I needed to speak with you." He looked the girl dead in her eyes. "No. You're not going to die today," he said in a voice that eased the child somewhat. The girl left her sister and looked up at him. "One, you got this right?" she asked with hope in her eyes. The hero smiled at the girl before petting her head. "Of course." "What's your name?" "Hazuki Shimada," she answered as a few tears slipped from her eyes. One wiped the tears from the young girl's face. "Dry those tears, Hazuki, because I got this," he exclaimed before walking away from the sisters and crouching down. One jumped, cracking the pavement, and flew at high speed towards the meteor. The elder sister looked up, her green eyes widened in amazement as she said, "One." One cocked back his fist as he flew towards the meteor. "You're not gonna fall on my town," he exclaimed as he reached the apex of his jump mere feet away from the meteor. He throws a punch that hits it hard, and from the point of impact the meteor begins to crumble and disintegrate, spreading until the falling space rock is just a thin cloud of dust. One allows himself to fall for a while before flying with Skywalk. He can hear multiple parts of the city erupt into cheers as they had survived this incident. One flew around as he made those who looted buildings pay for what they stole and accept thanks from the public. One just saved all of Shizuoka and surrounding prefectures from certain destruction, effectively becoming the hero of the city, and so much more. Back on the ground, news of one's actions spread fast amongst the pro-heroes. A skeletal-looking man with blonde hair, who was only told about the incoming threat after his time was up, looked out to the city. "You've been the hero again, One," he said with a grateful smile. Following the incident with the meteor, the media tried to paint the picture of All Might having destroyed it. However, eyewitness reports as well as multiple cell phone videos on top of the live-action feed on the app contradicted everything they tried to say. The government was criticized for not informing the public of this impending threat until it was far too late. The foreign assistance with missiles was criticized because it did nothing to help, but the loudest conversation was about the man who destroyed the meteor. The resolution of this incident caused ripples around the world. Everyone knew of All Might, but if he didn't stop this, then who possibly could? Many world leaders and representatives at the UN saw the videos of a hero clad in green jump, and seconds later the meteor disintegrated. They wanted to know who he was, and Japan's refusal to answer caused quite the stir amongst world leaders. It looked bad for Japan's heroes. Most notably, All Might, as the symbol of peace, seemed to do nothing at all to help the situation. It also didn't help that an uncut video of the fight with Vaccine Man was making its way around online. It revealed that All Might didn't defeat him, but it was one. It revealed the full beating he gave the heroes and one saving the day and defeating him with ease while All Might was nowhere to be seen. It also revealed the many people he saved after the fight, which was something the media strongly claimed and pushed that he did not do. Rising Sky Dojo 2 days later. Izuku was at the dojo hanging out with Momo in her dorm room. He was wearing a white t-shirt and black gym shorts. It was raining pretty hard, so he decided to stay the night. It was the last day of her internship and she had learned a lot, and this experience was good for her. They had come to her room after dinner, during which he got a weird vibe from Mirko as she kept stealing glances at him. Earlier that day she wanted to test the dojo's strongest disciple. He ended up winning the match, but since then she kept giving him this knowing look that came off as flirtatious. They were laying on her bed. Momo had her hair down and she was laying on Izuku's chest. She was wearing a pink shirt and blue pajama pants. Izuku? Momo asked. Yes. He answered. I know we just started dating, and I don't want to sound weird, but how do you feel about us being intimate? Izuku was shocked to hear this question as his face went a little red. Well, I'm sure I would really enjoy that. Where's this coming from? He asked quickly, seriously wanting an answer. She still laid on his chest as she answered, remember when you took Mirko and I out to eat the other day? Well, on our way back we talked about you all to the dojo. We had a talk about one. Okay. So what does that have to do with us? Long story short, Mirko said she wouldn't mind having one as a, and these are her words, bang buddy, because she doesn't do relationships. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Mirko wants to have sex with me? It seems that way. Momo answered dramatically. A lot of thoughts went through Izuku at that moment. On one hand he felt flattered, but on the other hand he had a girlfriend, so it was a no-go. He made eye contact with Momo. Momo, in case you're worried, I would never cheat on you. It sounds kinda weird, but if you're okay with us being bang buddies then fine, if not I won't do it. One doesn't have many hero friends and he values Mirko, and if our relationship is that of good friends who have sex occasionally, I'm fine with that. That will never replace what we have. I can't put it into words how much you mean to me, but I'll do my best. Momo Yaoyorozu, I love you. He exclaimed. Emerald eyes met Onyx as the two went into a passionate makeout session. Momo climbed on top of Izuku as they kissed. Izuku grabbed her hips as their tongues wrestled. They stopped kissing to breath as they looked at each other. As Izuku was kissing her neck and her collarbone he got the courage to grab her ass. Her sugary sweet ass felt heavenly in his hands. Momo moaned from the sensation as she could feel him getting hard under her. She got her own courage and lifted up his shirt revealing his godly muscular physique. She knew he was muscular. They swam at her house on multiple occasions, but seeing him shirtless right now made her wet. They went back to kissing. Izuku grabbed Momo's shirt and lifted it up revealing her double D's and a black bra. Izuku mouthed her boobs and kissed her stomach as he worked on unhooking her bra. Izuku unhooked Momo's bra, freeing her double D's. Izuku was mesmerized as he observed her bodacious mammaries before taking her right nipple in his mouth. He licked and circled it with his tongue before suckling her breast like a newborn. Momo moaned from pleasure as she pulled his head in closer. Izuku rolled over, putting Momo on her back and freeing her nipple from his mouth. The two kissed again before Izuku started making his way down. His heart was racing as he kissed her from her neck all the way to her stomach. He put hands on her pajama pants and was planning to remove them and her panties in one motion when Momo's phone suddenly rang. Looking over they could see that her mother was calling her. Despite her lust she broke off from Izuku to answer it. After a few minutes she hung up. So what was that about? Izuku asked. Apparently my parents are going out of the country for some business, so I'll be home alone for a few days when I get back. She answered. So are we on hold for now? Momo thought about his words. The weekend's coming up, her parents would be gone, so she had time to make her first time a little more less spontaneous. Both she and her boyfriend were half naked. He was looking sexy in front of her and the imprint of his erect penis was making her womanhood soak her panties the more she looked at him and thought about what they could be doing right now. I really want to do this, Izuku, but it feels a little too spontaneous. It's the weekend, so can we pick this up tomorrow? Izuku sighed with a smile. Of course we can. Izuku said as he got off the bed and put his shirt back on. He gave Momo a quick kiss. I don't want you to feel like you have to do this. When you're ready, I promise to make it good for you. Thank you, Izuku. I'll call you tomorrow, and you're staying at my house. Izuku nodded at her with a smirk. I look forward to it. I'm gonna call it a night. See you in the morning, Momo. Momo gave him a kiss before he left the room and went to take a shower in the shared bath at the end of the hall. He took a quick shower, brushed his teeth and flossed. He was still naked, wrapped in a towel. He took off the towel and used it to dry his wet hair. As he looked in the mirror, he suddenly heard a noise, and turning to his right he could see Mirko standing there. She was wearing a black sports bra and short shorts. Her mouth was agape, her eyes were wide, and they were locked on his long, soft, thick 9-inch dick. Izuku held the towel on his head as the two looked at each other. Mirko gave him a smile and a lust-filled look. Looks like you should be called the longest disciple, right, one? He wasn't embarrassed by this situation, but these words did throw him off. Excuse me? Oh, don't even. She said as she approached him. I took a lot from our sparring match earlier, most notably your scent. Izuku mentally cursed himself for not realizing, of course, rabbit senses and abilities compared to a human. He thought. She finally took her eyes off his dick and looked him in the eyes. She had a lustful smile and a look only midnight could mirror. I'll be honest, I like you, you're just my type. You want to be my bang buddy? Izuku, still naked, looked into her red eyes with an exasperated expression. I have a girlfriend. We won't be dating, we'll just be friends who do it. She gestured to his dick. May I? I'm not entirely comfortable with that. Let me talk with my girlfriend first. He said awkwardly, but he glanced at her cleavage and couldn't stop his dick from getting hard. He immediately brought the towel from his head to hide it. Mirko, after seeing the outline of his dick in the towel, was even more impressed with the teen. He was strong, well-equipped and had a good head on his shoulders. She wanted to uncover one's identity, and though coincidentally she was happy with what she found. Midoriya, let me be clear. She dropped down and removed the towel, causing his 12-inch, hard dick to slap her in the face. Her eyes filled with lust, she grabbed and inspected his cock and balls. I'm a very simple woman with very simple needs. As a rabbit, one of which is sex. Most guys I deal with, aka average guys, can't give me as much sex as I need, but you're not average, are you? You're strong, well-built and equipped to give me what I need. So, help your friend out. She said, smiling as she held his cock and cupped his big balls. Izuku began to sweat as his blush deepened and his dick felt like it was about to explode. And how much sex do you need? A lot. She responded with zero shame. Izuku was able to fight temptation as he took his dick from the rabbit hero. Let's double back to this conversation later, Mirko, he said as he grabbed his underwear, covered himself with the towel and speed blitzed to his room. Leaving behind an excited rabbit woman, Izuku made it back to his room and laid down. That situation was crazy, so he decided he would lay back and rest. He knew he would have an interesting day tomorrow, but this week has been crazy. He destroyed a meteor and the world knew that he defeated Vaccine Man and saved the city. He had seen the video and was curious as to who released the uncut footage because he knew Taku didn't do it. On top of that, he inadvertently got into politics from him being on the radar of world leaders. He would definitely have a confrontation with All Might in the very near future, but he'd just have to roll with it. Mirko wants him, and if all goes well tomorrow he would have sex with his beautiful girlfriend. He would have to review the notes he wrote down when his parents gave him the talk, as in one conversation he learned everything he would possibly need to know about sexually pleasing a woman. He was very much excited about what tomorrow would bring. Chapter 17. You couldn't understand. It was a sunny afternoon in the city of Mizutafu. The day was peaceful. It seems that avoiding certain death has made people take a moment and just have some normality, at least for the time being. In the midst of the peace and serenity were two blurs moving across the city and leaving strong gusts of wind behind them. One was green while the other was blue. The blue blur seemed to be chasing the green blur, but try as it might, it just couldn't close the gap between them. If anyone could keep up with them, they would notice in the middle of this chase a conversation was being had. Stop running, one. All Might yelled out. It wouldn't be tag if I stopped running now, would it, All Might? He joked. This annoyed the top hero. Stop screwing around. How many quirks do you have and where did you see AFO? Irrelevant question, All Might. But to answer your second question, some building in the woods outside Kashyyyk. All Might was starting to get winded. He had been chasing the Vigilante through the city for over a half hour now and he's been pushing it just to barely keep up. One, you can't continue on this path. Stop running and I can help you get on the path to becoming a licensed pro. I don't doubt that you think that, All Might, but becoming a pro hero isn't a possibility for me. Why is that? He asked, genuinely shocked. Because that's just how it is for me. I took my dream into my own hands, and I'm never letting it go. He exclaimed as he continued to run. The symbol of peace still didn't understand his reasons, but he knew his reasons were good. 1. I'm sure you have your reasons. But please just trust me, I can help. 1 was annoyed by that statement. That's just it All Might. I don't trust you, I can't trust you, nor do I trust the hero system. He exclaimed. All Might was shocked and got a little irritated at his response. And why the hell not? Because all men are not created equally. He yelled. You're not making any sense. All Might yelled back. Their chase continued, but it was clear the Vigilante was toying with the symbol of peace. Every time All Might pushed himself to run faster, one would speed up too. This chase had been very one-sided from the start. It didn't help that one had added wall running and parkour to the chase. He even slipped into traffic, which given his speed went completely unnoticed. The two round a corner and head down a one-way street. All Might speeds up and slowly but surely closes the gap. Just as one is in reaching distance, All Might notices the street's about to end with a turn off. All Might reaches to grab the Vigilante, but in that moment one speeds up and phases through a brick wall. All Might is just able to stop himself from slamming into it. He curses under his breath as he jumps onto the roof and heads to the other side. Looking to his left, he's just able to see one head down the street. Instead of following him, All Might takes a shortcut, and his intuition proved right when after a few minutes he was in front of the illegal hero. One crossed his arms and smiled at the pro. Wow, you're really loving the chase today. He said jokingly. We could end this little game of cat and mouse if you would just come with me. His smile didn't fade. Sorry, All Might can't do it, especially today. I've got plans with my girlfriend and you know how it is. Let's do this tomorrow, preferably around 3:17 p.m. He asked, clearly sarcastic. Stop screwing around, one. He exclaimed. He then took a breath and continued, Look, I don't know why you feel that this is your only way to be a hero, but I promise, I can help. I'm working at UA and we have connections. Just give us a chance. He asked as he outstretched a hand. One looked at the symbol of peace and took in his words. They were clearly genuine, and he truly believed he could help him become a pro hero. The memory of the day they met flashed into his mind, as well as him reading all of the rejection letters he received from the hero course, the first of which from UA that broke him. His life as one had made all that pain fade, but here All Might is once again in his ignorance, hurting him. I did. He mumbled in a low voice. All Might noticed he said something but couldn't quite hear it. What was that? I couldn't hear you. He asked, genuinely curious. One sighed before answering, not important. He looked at the pro and gathered his words before speaking again. All Might, answer me this and maybe I'll hear you out. Do you think that people, particularly those at the bottom, should stay that way forever? Despite having dreams that seem impossible, not being lucky but having more determination and working harder than anyone else. Should they stay what society has labeled them, or do you think they can achieve their dreams? His smile faded and his voice and look were completely serious. All Might looked at the Vigilante and took in his question. He took a moment to think about it. When he was young he felt that people needed a symbol to make them feel safe and act as a deterrent to crime. He met his master and she passed one for all onto him. She laughed at a quirkless kid like him wanting to be a symbol of peace, but she embraced his dream and accepted him. He was lucky, truly lucky. Had he not met his master, he honestly doesn't know what he would be today. What would his ambition have amounted to if he didn't have OFA? He knew very well that without that it may have just been a pipe dream. He looked at the Vigilante before taking a breath and answering him. 1. I think that anyone can achieve their goals. Some people are born with an edge over others, but if you believe in yourself you can achieve anything you set your mind to. There are also times where luck plays a factor, but if you can stay on the path you've drawn for yourself you'll reach your dreams. He answered with his signature smile. One sighed. You don't realize you just lied to me, All Might. I'm not lucky or blessed. No matter how hard I tried, becoming a pro hero and the hero I wanted to be wasn't feasible. His voice was sad as he spoke, but then he shifted. Then I decided it didn't have to be that way. I couldn't just give it up, so I picked myself up and resolved myself to become the hero I always dreamed of. You were right about one thing, staying on the path drawn for oneself and you'll reach your dream. Well, I've done that. I took the path necessary for me. I'm living my dream, and this is how I live it. So no matter what you say or do, I'll never give it up," he exclaimed. All Might was shocked and confused by his words. He's not giving a clear answer to why this is the only way he can be a hero. He truly wants to help him be a pro. After seeing what he can do, he was suspicious at first, but is now sure he's not in league with AFO. Also, he's bailed him out on 3 different occasions so far, in the fight against the blue villain, the attack on the USJ, and most recently he destroyed a meteor that would have caused mass devastation. His time had run out and he wasn't told that it was coming until it was too late. He fell into dread, hoping for a miracle, and when he was told one took care of it, he was amazed and eternally grateful. But still, his most recent actions have put other countries on edge, as well as questioned the quality of Japanese heroes. Though the good outweighs the bad, the fact that he's an illegal hero sets a bad precedent. 1. I hear that you have your reasons. You can be everything you want, but you have to do it on the right side of the law. One looked into the hero's eyes. You hear me, but you could never understand how I feel, All Might. Flash clone. All Might's eyes went wide when 1 by 1 20 clones of one suddenly appeared. We're done here, All Might, they all said in unison, as in a flash 20 green blurs scattered off in all directions. One of them even ran past All Might, making the hero choose to chase that one. All Might chased him for a few seconds, only for him to disappear when he touched him. The symbol of peace looked out to the city, knowing the real one was long gone, their talk still playing in his head. One decided to take a break, so he was going to hang out with Taku for a while before heading to Momo's. Izuku made it home to find his mother drinking tea while Taku played with Eri. The 2 boys go to his room to talk for a little bit. Taku was going to test drive a new invention after this. So, what happened? Tala asked with a sly smirk about last night. Me and Momo almost did it, he answered with a smile. Yo! What? He exclaimed in a low voice. What do you mean almost? Izuku told his friend about how last night at the dojo went, how he and Momo almost had sex but put it on hold for today, how Mirko figured out his identity and wants to be bang buddies. Taku grins like the Cheshire Cat from his story. You should have kept that going last night, with Yaoyorozu, I mean. But you better tear that up today, he exclaimed. It's kinda crazy how in the moment everything just clicked. I actually wanted to review those notes before I saw her today, he said, looking to a corner of the room. Taku was surprised by his words. What notes? Oh, I never told you. When I had the talk with my dad last year, I wrote it all down in a notebook. My mom even joined in too. Basically, they crossed every single parental boundary in the course of one conversation. I learned everything I would need to know about sexual pleasing a woman outside of an overt demonstration. Taku had a look of shock. Damn, dude. Now I want to see it, he exclaimed happily. Izuku went to his bookshelf and found the notebook labeled the talk notes and handed it to Taku. After a few seconds he was done reading it and had a huge smile on his face. First off, if your parents told you to do all this, you're golden. Second, send the bill for your eventual therapy sessions to me. I'll gladly pay them. Ha ha, he said sarcastically. Give it here, he said, taking the book from his friend and started reading it. That is some very helpful information. You know what, I'm calling Ryo Nakamura right now. Catch you later, Aizu, have fun, he said before leaving the room. Izuku turned to his friend as he left before turning back to his notes. That guy, he said with a smile. Later at the Yaoyorozu mansion, Izuku had made it past the front gate and now stood at the front door. After ringing it, Saikawa answered the door. Welcome, Midoriya, the madam has been expecting you, he answered with his eyes closed. Izuku entered the huge house and was a little nervous. Saikawa didn't open his eyes, but compared to usual he seemed a little off. Hello Saikawa, how have you been? I have been well. Lady Momo has been in an excited and angsty mood since she returned home. The master and mistress are conducting business overseas. They will return in a few days. Well, I hope they prosper in their endeavors. Izuku bowed before he began to walk away, but Saikawa called him back. Midoriya, before you go, the master seemed to have some foresight before he left, the butler said. His eyes were closed as he handed Teen a box of condoms. He took it from the butler without saying a word and made his way to Momo's room. On his way up he remembered the conversation he had with her dad when they announced their relationship. The talk was relatively chill, but one thing he said stuck out in his head. Her dad basically told him if they were ever intimate to do it in this house and to use protection. It weirded him out a bit as he also threw in a joke of Momo having ridden horses most of her life. Izuku made it to his girlfriend's room and knocked on the door. Momo gave him permission to come in and his mind was blown when he entered. His girlfriend was standing on the right side of the huge room. Her hair was down and she was wearing nothing but her red bra and panties. His eyes were fixed on her hot, tight body. Her curves and her sexy smile quickly brought him to full erection, something that didn't go unnoticed by his girlfriend. She gave him a seductive look. "See something you like, Izuku?" she asked as she stepped towards him. "The amazing body of my beautiful girlfriend, and that sexy look in your eyes. Yeah, like doesn't do justice for what I'm seeing right now," he said with a charming smile that excited Momo. She was now standing in front of him. "So what do you want to do?" she asked as she blushed with a sly smile. "I'll show you," he answered as he pulled her in for a kiss. The two passionately made out. Momo held his head as their tongues wrestled with Izuku dominating her. He grabbed her waist and slid his hands down to her sweet cheeks. He pulled her close as he gave them a firm squeeze. He moved his hands under her ass and picked her up. They kept kissing as Izuku carried Momo and sat her down on her huge bed. Momo lifted Izuku's shirt, revealing his godly physique. He unhooked her red bra and laid her down. He kissed her from her stomach to her panties. He teased her as he felt, kissed and mouthed her left thigh from top to bottom. Momo cooed as he mouthed and licked her pussy through her panties. He put the box of condoms on her nightstand before taking off his shorts. The outline of his dick in his black boxer briefs made her wet. Momo was excited as the boy climbed onto her bed and crawled towards her. They went back kissing. Izuku was on Momo's right side as he sucked on her boobs and rubbed her pussy through her panties. Momo moaned and squirmed from his skillful teasing. Izuku got on top of Momo. He squished her boobs together before taking both of her nipples into his mouth. "Izuku!" Momo loudly moaned with pleasure as she came. She looked into her boyfriend's adorable green eyes. Momo was amazed at how good this felt. He was finding every one of her sweet spots. She had no idea her breasts were so sensitive. Izuku freed her nipples from his mouth and made his way down. Putting hands on her panties, he took them off her, revealing her clean-shaven, wet, virgin pussy. With a sly look to his girl Izuku dove in, he massaged her boobs as his tongue lapped at her womanhood like a hungry cat. Momo instantly reacted when his tongue made contact. She threw her head back as pleasure swirled in her most sensitive spot. Izuku's tongue explored every part of Momo's womanhood. His tongue entered and squirmed all over her entrance. Momo bit her lip to hold in her moans as an orgasm quickly built up. Izuku took his tongue out and began slashing at her clit. He licked it fast. Momo's toes curled and girl cum exploded from her. Momo was in heaven. Her body was rocked with pleasure she had never known. His skillful tongue was completely working her. She was close to orgasm again when Izuku went for her clit. She could feel it. Her body was about to explode with pleasure. Izuku took 2 fingers and began to finger her while he licked her flesh. It was too much. She curled her toes and she arched her back as she got closer. She tried to close her legs, but Izuku held her in place as he began sucking her clit. This set her off. She let out a yell of pleasure as girl cum erupted from her in Izuku's face. Her body twitched and spasmed as her third orgasm tore through her. Her eyes widened and she tried to catch her breath as she rode the wave of pleasure. She was surprised when Izuku continued to lick her. "Izuku, wait. She threw her head back as he pleasured her through her orgasm again. She knew there was no stopping this now. Izuku knew what he wanted and she was going to give it to him. Momo gripped her sheets as another orgasm tore through her. She was high on pleasure as Izuku got on top of her. She let out a few deep breaths before speaking. "Wow, if I had known you were this good with your tongue, we would have done this last night," she said with a lustful smile. "Happy to see you feeling so good," he said with a sly smirk. "But I don't have to be the only one," she said before rolling Izuku on his back. She got excited and a little nervous as she got between his legs. She massaged his bulge before she slowly removed his underwear and inch by inch his big dick was revealed. Momo took it into her hands, amazed at how big it was, roughly 12 inches of thick man meat that she could barely wrap her hands around. She began to lightly stroke it while she cupped his big balls. The member in her hands and the scent coming off of it seemed to hypnotize her. Her master's lesson from the Kanamura festival entered her mind. She kissed the tip, then gave the shaft a lick before giving it a long lick from the base to tip. She then licked and swirled her tongue around the tip before taking it into her mouth. She sucked the tip while giving Izuku a seductive look. She took 5 inches into her mouth before she pulled back her head before going back on the dick. She stroked the remaining 7 inches while she massaged his big juicy balls. She sucked him for a while, seemingly getting better the more she worked him before she took as much as she could until she gagged. Then she pulled off the dick to breathe. "Wow, what, do you feed this thing, Izuku?" she asked between breaths. He chuckled lightly. "Don't even know how to answer that. Let's just say it runs in the family," he said with a smirk. Momo chuckled a little from his answer. "You're funny." "Well, I'm not done with you yet," she responded before she spit a glob of her own clear spit onto the vast organ. She held it up and it dribbled from the top of all the way to his large balls. Momo went back to work. This time she more than doubled her speed. Her head moved to and fro on his dick so fast and hard her hair swooped in arching motions. The spit had acted as lubricant and had made her head bobbing far easier. The effect showed in Izuku's groans increasing. He looked at Momo's gorgeous face moving vigorously on his cock, her onyx eyes looking at him hungrily and her full lips pursing tighter on him. Izuku laid back and enjoyed the blowjob. It was so good he truly wondered if this truly was her first time. He looked at Momo slurping and bobbing on his dick. It felt amazing he couldn't take it anymore. "Momo?" With his dick in her mouth, Momo stopped slurping to look at him. Moments later, Momo screamed as she bit into her pillow as another orgasm tore through her. Izuku was pounding her into the mattress. She soaked the bed beneath her. The sound of flesh hitting flesh filled the room. Momo was drowning in a sea of orgasmic bliss as Izuku humped her. In just a few minutes she had lost track of how many times she's come, and each time it only took one thrust. Squeezing him tighter yields nothing as it only increases her sensitivity. She had no idea it would feel this good. It took a while, but he finally figured out how much pressure it would take to get her to come. He was surprised at first when she didn't have a hymen, but apparently she broke it in training a year ago. They switched into the side saddle position. Izuku held Momo's left leg up while reaching under her and gripping her right boob while giving her long strokes. The impact of Izuku's cock made the girl's body jiggle, shake and flex in all the right places. 20 minutes later, they switched positions again. Momo was on her back with Izuku on her right holding up her thigh, sucking her right boob and fucking her. Momo holds his head to her chest with her right hand and she keeps coming over and over again. After a while they switch positions again. This time Izuku holds her up while putting her legs up and holding her in a headlock. Izuku pistoned into her, pleasuring every inch of her pussy. Momo had a heart in her eyes and her biggest smile as she was consumed with lust. "Izuku, you're so rough," she exclaimed as she came again. 30 minutes later, Izuku mounted Momo, who was ass up face down. She bit the pillow as girl cum trickled down her thighs. Izuku was a blur as he fucked her. He gripped her soft ass as his huge dick perfectly pleasured her. Momo continued to scream from pleasure and call his name as he gave her orgasm after orgasm. 40 minutes later, they get in the missionary position. Izuku is a blur as he fucks her. He holds her hands and looks at her lust-filled face as she begs for more. Izuku was close, so he sped up and added more pressure, making Momo moan with pleasure. "Momo, I'm about to dash. Kiss me. Kiss me as you do it," she exclaimed. Izuku's blurring thrusts continued until he reached under her head and pulled her into a kiss with one final, powerful thrust, causing a huge orgasm to tear through Momo. Her eyes widen. She's lip-locked with her boyfriend. She can feel him ejaculating into a bloating condom. She's having the biggest orgasm right now and it all feels so good. The two fiercely kissed for a while before Izuku got out of her. He was surprised the condom didn't break and he was glad it didn't. He dumped the used condom in the trash and laid in bed next to Momo. She snuggled up to him and had the biggest smile he's ever seen on her. "Izuku, that was, I don't even know a word to describe that," she exclaimed. "Our first time was pretty great. I'm glad that it was such a good time for both of us," he said as he wrapped his arm around her while she felt his chest. It really was," Momo said, as she laid against him as the words came to her. "I love you? Really, sure that's not just the sex talking?" He joked. "I'm serious," she playfully shot back. "Last night, you said you loved me, and I was so caught up in the moment I didn't say it back. So in case you didn't know, I love you, Izuku Midoriya," she said, looking into his eyes. Izuku took her hand and kissed it, then he gave her a smile that said, "I know." The next day, Izuku, Momo and Eri were laughing as they left the amusement park. They had spent the whole day riding rides, eating food, and enjoying each other. Izuku had promised Eri to take her this weekend and he invited Momo to come along with them. Izuku wore a white t-shirt, a blue vest with black shorts and his red shoes. Momo wore a white t-shirt, black leggings and black and white low tops. Eri wore a purple t-shirt, black leggings and brown boots. Eri had so much fun at the petting zoo, riding rides, and Izuku won her a stuffed bear from a pitching game. The three had taken photos in a booth, some were normal while the rest were silly. Izuku and Momo even took some romantic pics. The whole day was so much fun. Izuku and Momo had been all over each other the whole day. They both put on some serious PDA throughout the course of the day, attracting many jealous stares. The sun was going down so the three decided to leave. Eri was holding her large, stuffed blue bear while Izuku carried her on his shoulders. "You have a good day, Eri?" "Yeah," she exclaimed. "That was crazy. At first I was scared when we went higher and higher, but when we came down it was so much fun. Then Izumi, you threw your arms up and you were screaming. Then I threw my arms up and screamed too, and it was so much fun," she exclaimed. "I'm happy you had a good time, Eri." He smiled, genuinely happy to see the little girl's bright smile, and he would protect that even if it killed him. The three hopped on the bullet train heading back to Mizutafu. Momo sat by the window with Eri in the middle and Izuku at the end. The three continued to laugh and talk amongst each other about their good day. Izuku and Momo were talking while Eri was admiring the stuffed bear Izuku had won for her as they were passing through Hosa City. Momo looked out to the city and several parts of it were on fire. Izuku noticed this as he suddenly felt a disturbance when a crash came from a few seats ahead of them. A hole appeared in the side of the train they were on. Izuku and Momo stood up and they saw a hero being pinned down and crushed by a Nomu. Both eyes widen when they see the creature. "What the hell is this thing?" the down hero exclaimed as the creature slammed his head down. "Momo, take care of Eri," he exclaimed before blitzing diagonally to the wall in front of the Nomu before launching off the wall and tackling it out of the hole in the train. "Izumi," Eri yelled out as he left the train. Izuku and the Nomu flew to the ground. The teen rapidly flipped and threw the Nomu to the ground. The creature cracked the pavement before Izuku came down and punched it, making it explode in blood and gore, causing the whole area to shake. Izuku dipped into an alley and changed into his beta suit. He jumped on the roof of a building and saw that several sections of the city were on fire. All around him he could hear the sound of people screaming in fear. He thought of the fun day he had with Momo and Eri. He sighs, and this day went by so well, he said, annoyed before leaping into the city. A Nomu was attacking a couple. It had cornered them and they freaked out when it released flesh from its mouth. Suddenly a blade of air came from above, cutting the monster in half. One landed and told the two to get to safety before beheading, going to help more people. Nomu were attacking the city. He didn't know how many there were, but they were giving pro heroes a lot of trouble. In a burning section of the city, a black muscular Nomu battled a group of pros. Nothing they did could phase. It roared as it slammed its fists to the ground, cracking it and kicking up dust, forcing every hero to jump back. In the cloud of dust, the Nomu gets behind a female hero and is about to punch her. Manuel calls out to warn her and she turns in horror at the monster in mid-swing. One comes in, hitting it with a flying kick and sending it flying back and dispersing the cloud of dust. The heroes were shocked to see the infamous Vigilante come from nowhere. One of them called out in surprise. The Vigilante saw the monster stop itself and it was ready to come back. In a flash of speed, one slugs the Nomu in its gut and it explodes into blood and gore. He looks up to see a flying Nomu carrying a man in its talons for feet. He jumps and grabs the man. He spins and kicks Nomu to the ground, making a small crater. He handed the shaken up man to the other heroes. "Help anyone injured and get them to safety. I'll take care of this," he said before running off in a flash. One speed blitz across the city, defeating Nomu after Nomu. He came across a group of heroes fighting a muscular humanoid lion and a robot gorilla. As this was happening on the roof of a building overlooking the chaos, Tamura Shigaraki was standing near three men. They all wore suits. One of them had on glasses, the other was a living black mist, while the last was significantly taller than the other two. He wore a black futuristic mask over his head. The dry-skinned man looked to the tallest man. "One," he said with venom. "Master, my Nomu are losing. This wasn't supposed to happen," he exclaimed angrily. The man smiled behind his mask. Ignorance, Tamura. You asked for my permission to unleash Nomu on this city. You should have known that this would bring him here. These words caused the man-child to look away. TCH. The man with glasses looked at him. This is what you wanted, isn't it? You wanted one to show up here? He smiled behind his mask. Very insightful, Dr. Genus. Admittedly, I've been curious about him for a long time. Your experiments are doing well. Is your final experiment ready? He is. Still, I find it unwise to unleash Carnage Kabuto here as bait. Beast King and Armored Gorilla are making easy work of these heroes. True. But he is the most powerful artificial being you've created, yes. If all goes well, I will have what I want. The only reason I joined your villain factory was because you allowed me to conduct my experiments. I want to push the bounds of human evolution, and quirks are merely a step in that. I'm sure you already know that, but know this, you're not the only one who is interested in one, clearly. Let's see how your most powerful experiment does. It'll be bloodshed the moment you drop him here. Dr. Genus sighed before he turned to Kurogiri. Bring him here. Oh, and drop him near Endeavor. AFO ordered. One had just defeated 2 enemies, saving several heroes. One was a giant muscular humanoid lion, while the other was a robot gorilla. He pummeled the lion villain with his senju blows, while he one-shot the robot gorilla, who turned out to be an intelligent gorilla turned cyborg. I think these may be the last ones. Now we can take care of the fires and help the injured, he said to the pros when he suddenly heard several loud bangs before looking to see someone flying from the upper wall of a building. He quickly jumps to catch them before they hit the ground. He was sure he knew who it was before he caught them, and he was right and surprised. It was Endeavor. He held the flame hero in his arms as he coughed up blood. Endeavor. What happened to you? The man grunted in pain as he tried to form words. One laid Endeavor down as he suddenly heard loud crashes of destruction and several buildings came down before him. What the hell? He said out loud. He heard rumbling getting closer and closer before a hulking figure akin to a rhinoceros beetle attempted to punch him. Releasing his power aura, the figure jumped back far down the street. So, that's the one responsible for that destruction. That thing is strong. He thought as he looked at the creature who had wide eyes and was sweating and breathing heavily. From the rooftops overlooking the scene, Dr. Genus was utterly shocked. Absurd. Carnage Kabuto retreating. AFO was also surprised. Yes he did. He said in a low voice. Back on the ground, Carnage Kabuto was breathing heavily as he stared at the green-clad hero in fear. What the hell, I asked this guy. If I had attacked just now he'd have killed me for sure, that's one right? They told me I could go off on him, but I'm scared. Me? I'm really scared. These feelings enraged him as he roared out, just what the hell are you? One smiled as he faced the monster, a hero. His eyes widened as these words seemed to piss him off. He was screwing with him, now he was going to kill him. He began to grow larger, his muscles bulged and his horn grew larger and sharper, his skin turned purple and his eyes glowed red, his veins stood out and were green and his teeth became sharper. A hero, huh? Now you've seriously pissed me off. This is my carnage mode. When I get like this I go on a rampage for an entire week and my bloodlust can be quelled. Try and stop me, hero. He roared. In a flash of speed he was in one's face as he threw a punch. The hero blocked with his forearm. The shockwave caused glass to shatter all around him. The ground cracked beneath him, but the punch didn't faze him. The heroes behind him looked in horror as they felt the impact of the punch. One had to get them out of danger. He grabbed Kabuto's arm before rapidly spinning and throwing him down the street. Carnage Kabuto got his bearings as he prepared to rush back at the hero. In a flash one was in his face, and with a powerful uppercut he exploded with green blood splattering everywhere. Dr. Genus dropped to his knees. After seeing the last of his most powerful experiments killed so easily, did that really just happen? Carnage Kabuto in carnage mode killed like some kind of insect. Shigaraki looked down at the shocked man. Looks like your experiment wasn't as strong as you thought it was, he said smugly. Genus stood up and looked at him with anger. Quiet. I have to fail extremely hard in order to be mocked by a man-child. Tamura clenched his hands as if ready to use his quirk. The hell did you just call me? The two kept eye contact as Genus went in on him. I called you an unorganized, incompetent man. Child. He exclaimed. How else do you explain a random attack like this on a whim? Shigaraki was ready to turn the four-eyed doctor into dust before Kurogiri calmed him down. As this was happening, AFO was taking action. One looked at the splattered remains of Carnage Kabuto before collecting a sample. He was about to go check on Endeavor and help the injured before he heard a voice in his head. Impressive, very impressive one. He was slightly startled by a voice that wasn't Intech. Who are you? Before I answer that, first I want to know who you are. You know it's proper manners to give your own name before asking someone theirs. What have you done with Intech? The voice slightly chuckled. While that is true, I'm not fully understanding your deal, one. And as for your sidekick, I haven't done anything to him. I am merely using radio signals to speak into your cowl. I suspected I could and it worked. Well, what do you want to discuss? One asked. I have been following your exploits for months now. When I learned that fool was becoming a teacher at UA, I was certain it was to find a worthy successor. Then you showed up on the scene. I figured this was all some sort of field training, and once school started you'd wrap it up. But the attack of the blue villain, the attack on UA, and most recently obliterating a meteor with one punch, as well as the damage done to his reputation, I still couldn't figure out why the successor to One for All would be a vigilante of all things. Successor to One for All. One thought to himself as the voice continued to speak. But now that I'm this close to you, I am astonished that I don't sense its fire burning within you. So, what's your deal, One? The vigilante took in the words of the voice. He was relieved that Taku wasn't in any danger, but the gears in his head started clicking. This person thought he had something called OFA. He wondered what that could be, then it clicked. He began looking around as the voice said he was close to him. He quickly jumped to the roof of a building and he looked around. Looking for me now? The voice suddenly asked. I only want to talk, not fight. Whether we fight or not depends on you. You thought I had something called OFA. Does that mean you're all for one? You truly don't know what OFA is, but I'm impressed to know you've heard of me. One jumped onto a water tower to get a better look. You'd be surprised what I know. And I know so many villainous activities will break down once I take care of you, and this time I'll do more than just crush your arm. Ah, so you were the Red Rabbit. I suspected it was you, but I wasn't certain. That really hurt, by the way. All I wanted was your quirks, and to turn us into Nomu. Just like Ishiki Ishikawa and Akaza Soyama? He exclaimed as he continued to feverishly look around. Wow, I am surprised with what you know. One got an alert on his hero phone and he pulled it out to see that Taku was tracing the signal this whole time, and it revealed exactly where he was. He looked in the direction of the signal and saw 4 figures standing on a rooftop in the distance. The Nomu, why do that to people? He asked, seeing them in the distance. Every king needs his soldiers. Soldiers. You kidnap people, steal their quirks and experiment on them, turn them into mindless monsters just to fuel your own power and have obedient soldiers, he exclaimed, demanding an answer. Exactly. He answered casually. Kurogiri looked in the distance at the vigilante standing on the water tower. Master, I think he's looking at us. He's been looking around like an idiot for a while, Kurogiri. Plus, as dark as it is, there's now a way he's looking at us. Shigaraki stated. All 4 men looked towards the vigilante on the water tower. Tamura Shigaraki, he's looking at us like he sees us. The Black Mist said as suddenly one launched from the water tower and crash-landed in front of the group, surprising and startling all of them. One released a wave of his power aura, sending chills and the feeling of imminent death through all of them. AFO could feel his power and was very intimidated, while Kurogiri froze with fear and Shigaraki and Genus forgot to breathe. One fully stood up and looked at the fearful group before him, mostly at the tall man in the futuristic mask. So you're all for one. I was expecting you to look like a supervillain, but I wasn't expecting you to have your own Darth Vader mask. He joked with a smile. With all you knew, a more sensible person would have fled, but you came right to me. The foolishness of a hero. He mocked in spite of his chills. One smile shined. No way, why run from someone that you're not scared of? I take that as a compliment, because only a fool could become what I am. I originally wanted to take OFA, but it seems I have found something surprisingly better. AFO said as his fingers turned black with chipped red in them before tendrils came flying at one. Riven stab, AFO called out. The tendrils hit the vigilante who just stood there, but he was shocked when they shattered off of his body. He was even more surprised when one just walked towards him. The tendrils continued to break as Kurogiri snapped out of his fear-filled state and warped the still scared-to-breathe Shigaraki and Genus away. One continued to get closer and closer to AFO. His plan was to nail him at point-blank range. He knew from their last encounter what would happen when he got close enough. He just wished he could see his face when he failed. His quirk had no effect on the Vigilante, which made AFO even more hungry for his quirk. He may not have OFA, but whatever his power is, he wanted it. One was finally close enough and he grabbed his face. Shockingly, he put up no resistance as the red aura swirled around his hand. The aura faded and he was shocked, horrified, and confused. I couldn't take his quirk? No, it's not that. He doesn't have a quirk for me to take. He thought to himself in disbelief. One grabbed his arm and crushed it like a tube of toothpaste, taking it off his head and looking up at him with a confident smile. So, figured it out yet? How? How could someone like you even exist in this world? He exclaimed as he failed to free his arm from his grip. 2 words. One said as he cocked back a fist, fire and desire. He yelled as he decked AFO in the gut, sending him flying into the sky and out of the city. Master! Kurogiri called, but one paid him no mind as he jumped after their leader. AFO was flying through the air when one met him in a flash and gave him a brutal punch. He flew after him to hit him again and again. After 7 punches, one blitzed behind him and uppercut him above clouds. Speed blitzing again, he appears above him and grabs his potato head before kicking off the air. They catch fire as one rockets them to the ground. They become ablaze, leaving shockwaves in their wake as one slams AFO face first into the ground, creating a massive crater and bright, loud, powerful explosion. When the dust settled, one looked at the down boss villain still breathing in a burnt suit and a destroyed mask. It's over. He stepped from the body to call this in. People would definitely be curious as to where this crater in the countryside came from. He could also see a bullet train heading to the city in the distance. Cough, cough. One turned around to see AFO slowly standing up. Humans, sure are interesting. I miscalculated. I would have never expected a failure from a species that's long since moved on to be such an obstacle. He said, clearly in a lot of pain. Yeah. Your biggest mistake was getting on my radar. He smiled, a mistake on my end to be sure. I'll regroup for now and go back to planning. One speed blitzed the villain. What makes you think I'm letting you get away again? He asked as he threw a punch that was surprisingly caught by AFO. Powerful wind pressure burst from impact. Impact recoil. AFO exclaimed as one was thrown back from the force of his own attack. He flew out of the crater and using this chance he used his gray sludge to warp away. One was unhurt as he blitzed back to his enemy only to see the gray fluid from before warping him away. Coward! He yelled out. After cleaning up his loose ends, and Hosu Izuku got out of costume and headed to the train station. When he got to the platform, he was tackled into a hug by Eri. She had tears in her eyes, and according to Momo, she refused to leave the city without him. They had to get off their original train and Momo assured her he would be okay, so they decided to wait for him at the station knowing he would show up. He hugged and assured Eri everything was okay while apologizing for making her worry. He also gave Momo a look that said they will talk about it later. Next Saturday, since it happened, the Hosu incident was what every news outlet was talking about. Many heroes were injured and the League of Villains was to blame for the whole thing. Everything went into overdrive when it was reported that it was one who put a stop to the chaos, even saving Endeavor among several other heroes in the process. The community section of the app blew up again with many commenting on his latest heroic escapades. After the fact, Izuku thought to himself and couldn't help but feel frustrated at letting AFO get away again. More importantly, what is OFA? He assumed he had it and that he was its successor. He said that a fool became a teacher at UA in hopes of finding one. AFO, someone who can take and give quirks, all. 4. 1. Could that be the name of his quirk? Villains do name themselves after their quirks, so does that mean the one for all is just that, a quirk? If that's the case, then who is the fool and the he that AFO was talking about? Maybe All Might. He is the newest teacher at UA, and if he's the underground boss Overhaul insinuated he was, then he should definitely know him. I have to figure this out because it could be a problem if he gets his hands on OFA, which means I have to find it. He thought with a serious expression. Izumi? Eri called out to him concerned. He snapped out of his deep serious thoughts and looked at the little girl. Yeah, Eri, you looked a little scary. She said innocently. Ha ha ha. Sorry about that. I was just thinking about some stuff. It's not important right now. Are you ready to get to Momo's? Aha. she answered with a smile. The two were headed to Momo's house to help her class study for finals. Many of them asked for Momo's help on the written portion, and she asked Izuku if he could help out, which he agreed to. He brought Eri with him because after studying they were going to have a pool party. Eri couldn't swim, but he brought floaties and would teach her when they got in the water. They got to Momo's house and sat at her huge dining room table with the others. Along with Momo there was Jiro, Ashido, Ojiro, Siro and Kaminari. He sat down and went to work while Eri played with the handheld game console that Izuku bought her. Izuku was a big help, helping out everyone in the subjects they were having the most trouble in. His grades were third in his year among the first years at his school. After about 2 hours they wrapped it up with the boys minus Izuku leaving. Ashido walked them to the door, and after they were gone she took off her purple tank top revealing her white bikini top. "Time to party, people!" the pink girl exclaimed. Moments later everyone was in Momo's pool. The girls were splashing while Izuku was teaching Eri how to swim. Surprisingly, it didn't take her long to get the motions down, and after a while she was swimming relatively good. The party was fun. There was a basketball hoop outside the pool they played on, had a water gun fight, swimming contest and so much more while Ashido's speaker played music. Izuku and Momo played and flirted with each other all the while Ashido teased them for it, but that didn't stop the PDA. All in all, it was a good day. The next day, one in his beta costume was flying in the direction of a distress beacon he had picked up and was flying towards it with Skywalk. After a while the source of the signal came into view. It was the old Genesee shipyard. Judging from the look of the place and the nature that covered it, it's been down for decades, a perfect place for some shady people to do operations. It actually wasn't his first time here. About 4 months ago he stopped smugglers that were using the place as a base of operations. It makes sense, the place was out of sight and most of the buildings were still intact. The problem was that this facility had a lot of open space, so using his invisibrate technique he became invisible. He didn't see anyone from the sky, so when he touched the ground he began to look around. All of his senses were focused and his scanners were searching for people. He could see people in the buildings trying to hide, and he could hear people around him talking in low voices. He deactivated his technique, becoming visible, and the moment he did he could sense eyes on him. This was an obvious trap. Next step, spring the trap. Most things he saw in the yard were covered in rust, but he walked by 2 rollers containing thick metal cables that looked surprisingly new. In that moment he knew exactly who was behind this as he stepped in between the cables. The instant he did they suddenly became alive and like snakes wrapped themselves around him and squeezed. It didn't bother him at all. One stood there wrapped in metal cables as he looked up. "You can come out now, best jeanist." When these words were uttered suddenly more than just the named fiber hero showed themselves. All Might, Endeavor, Hawks, Edshot, Crust, Wash, Uroi Musha, Ryukyu, Gang Orca along with Eraserhead and Nizu all came out of their hiding places. Wow, the top 10 heroes used a distress beacon to lure me into an obvious trap. Should I feel honored or disgusted? He asked, smiling. They all looked at him seriously before Best Jeanist spoke up. "Your vigilantism is over 1. He said in a stern voice. "Best Jeanist, I should really get paid 100 yen every time someone says that to me." Endeavor glared at the vigilante. "Let's just unmask him and throw him in a cell already. And after I got you to the hospital the other day, Endeavor, way to keep that same energy." One joked, making the flame hero deepen his glare. Nizu walked up to him. "I must admit you had a good run as an illegal hero, but this is where it ends. 1. Hello Nizu, I assume this operation was your brainchild." That it was. Admittedly it was hard getting the top 10 heroes all together like this, but for you it was necessary. Leaving people unprotected just so you can chase a vigilante. You don't find that sad at all? After hearing this, Best Jeanist tightened his restraints, but this only annoyed one, so he effortlessly tore the restraints apart, freeing himself and shocking the heroes. He turned to the fiber hero. "I wouldn't have minded staying in those a little longer, but you annoyed me by trying to tighten them." "Also Hawks? What the hell, man? You're supposed to be my friend." Hawks smiled and put up a hand for mercy. "For the record, I don't want to be here, but my hands are kinda tied." "Well, that makes it so much better," he said sarcastically as he looked around to see that one was missing from the top 10 heroes. "Where's Mirko?" "Oh, she didn't feel like coming," Hawks answered. "Well, I'll have to thank her when I see her. So, I'm leaving now." "The methods you took were very villainous. Don't do it again," he said sternly as he turned to leave before All Might called out to him. "Wait." He turned back to look at the symbol of peace. Yeah, All Might? He extended a hand. Come with us, we can help you become a licensed hero. I don't know the circumstances that made you go down this road, but you have options. Let us help you. You can be a hero, but there's a right way to do it, he said with sincerity. Nisa then perked up. He's right, one. With our connections at UA we could open so many doors for you if you just give us a chance. Many thoughts go through one's mind as he shook his head and sighed. I'm sorry, but no, it's too late for that. I don't need it anymore, he answered in a sad tone. All Might's smile faded. Why? One raised his head as he looked at the heroes. Because you don't understand. I doubt anyone standing here is even capable of understanding. Ryukyu stepped up. Then help us too? She asked gently. He sighed before he spoke. All Might, I was 5 when I first saw the video of your debut. I thought you were so cool. In the midst of this chaos this guy is smiling and saving everyone. From that moment I knew what I wanted to be, but all men are not created equally, and my dream was significantly derailed. However, I didn't let that discourage me. I knew what I wanted to be and I dedicated myself to becoming that. I found a place, and I met people who believed in me. They helped me achieve the strength needed for my goal and then some. But outside of my safe haven I was friendless and dubbed useless, the kid nobody liked but also the kid nobody wanted to know. Everyone knew who the hero was gonna be, building them up and praising them until they made it. But they're not the only ones with dreams. Mine was always shot down. I was always labeled a failure or less than everyone else. I always smiled through it, but no matter how hard I tried I couldn't escape it. Everyone had unilaterally decided my dream was impossible. They wouldn't even give me a chance to try and prove them wrong. My peers, teachers, heroes all told me to give it up. Over and over and over again my dreams were constantly stomped in the dirt and no one ever cared how much that hurt. All I wanted was to be a hero, but no one would let me. He clenched his fist. So I decided to say screw all of you, he exclaimed. This is my dream. I've become stronger than anyone. I'm able to help the weak, anyone in trouble, anytime. And my training, all the effort I put in, the time I spent and the agony I endured, it wasn't for nothing. Though others decided it was, I wouldn't let it be. I couldn't. So I became the one hero unlike any other ever. I took my dream into my own hands and I'm living it the only way I can. I want nothing to do with UA or the black and white B.S you people are trying to spew. I don't need your help anymore. I don't want it, because it's been made painfully clear that this is how it has to be for me. Each and every one of you are ignorant hypocrites and you don't even realize it. You're standing in my face telling me I can be a hero because I've done so much, but the moment you learn who I am I guarantee you'll take it all back, he exclaimed with frustration. The pros were numb as they took in his words. They could hear the pain in his words. He was hurt. The circumstances that set him down this road truly hurt him and he won't let anyone in. Eraserhead took in his words and he had nothing to say. He had chased the Vigilante on numerous occasions but he never once tried to just talk to him. If he did, maybe he'd have noticed the pain underneath. Nisa looked at the Vigilante and was stunned by his words. He doesn't trust UA or the hero system and he's been hurt deeply by something. All Might was numb from the Vigilante's words. Whoever he is, they had failed him. There were moments in his life when he needed someone to understand him and they failed him. He's someone that no one believed in but always believed in himself because his circumstances necessitated that. Is he being a hypocrite? Is he ignorant? Why doesn't he think he can help him? Best Jeanist spoke up. Enough, one. I'm sure your life has been very hard and I'm sorry no one tried to understand you, but if you choose to stay on the path we're taking you in, he said seriously. One sighed. I knew from the beginning you couldn't understand, let alone try, he said before getting into his stance. I hold no animosity against any of you but I won't be taken in. Eraserhead prepared himself for battle. If you fight us then you really will be a criminal, says the heroes who used a distress signal to lure me into a trap, knowing I would come to save anyone in need. The first 2 times this happened it was legitimate villains but I knew you people would pull this crap at some point. He shot back. One, please don't do this. All Might asked. Either I'm leaving or we're fighting All Might. The top hero sighed. So that's how it's going to be? If you're not letting me walk away that's how it has to be. One answered in a serious tone. Fine. Smash. All Might throws a right hook at one who easily deflects it, grabs All Might's arm and spins before tossing him into wash. sending them across the yard and crashing into a building that collapsed on top of them. Gang Orca rushes and fires a sonic blast at the Vigilante only for his head to be shoved up before a kick sank into his gut and darkness overtook him as he lost consciousness. As the whale hero flew past him, Best Jeanist tried to bind one while Edgeshot tried to pierce him and knock him out. To the shock of both heroes, one had become intangible, making both their quirks ineffective. In a flash of speed he decks Best Jeanist, knocking him out before shoving an elbow into Yoroi Musha, taking him out too. Crust tried to hit him with the sharp end of his shield, but one dodged it before punching the flat side of the shield, breaking both it and Crust's left arm. Before he could react to the pain, one landed a spin kick to the back of his head, knocking him out and sending him flipping and bouncing down the yard, stopping just short of the water. One sidestepped to dodge an attack from behind from Edgeshot. When he folded back to normal, he was struck with a Tempest kick that carried and cut into him. He was crouched down as he tried to get back when one suddenly appeared and chopped him in the head, making a crater and knocking him out. Ryukyu was in her dragon form and tried to take a swing at one, but he flipped over her arm, then jumped back at her and landed a brutal triple kick on her head, putting her down. He went for Eraserhead, who tried to use his scarf, but like so many other times one grabbed it, then speed blitzed. He punched him in the face before landing a high kick that took him off the ground, and then, flipping and spinning, he wrapped him in his own scarf before slamming him hard to the ground, cracking the pavement. Seriously, Eraser, how many times do we have to repeat this? He turned to Endeavor, who was fuming while Hawks was watching from a rooftop. The group of heroes had been decimated, and it's been just barely a minute. One didn't bother to look, he just threw his head back to dodge a punch from All Might, who just got back. He quickly dropped and swept his feet, making him hit the ground hard before flipping over him. He stared down Endeavor, who fired flash fire at him. He just stood there and took it, surprising the number 2 hero. He was completely shocked when he saw the Vigilante was completely unharmed by his attack. Hey Endeavor, I had a talk with your son the night before the sports festival, and I just want you to know, you disgust me, he said, pointing at the man. I've been wanting to punch you for a while now, couldn't do it in Hosu, it wouldn't have been appropriate. But now, waves of blaze, meteor combo. He called out as in a flash of speed he elbowed the flame hero before pummeling him with a barrage of powerful kicks so fast his feet caught fire. After a final kick to the chest that pushes him back, one slugs him with a brutal, burning punch to the gut. The look on the man's face is one of intense pain, but the Vigilante wasn't done. He jumps into the air as the fire hero falls on his back. One then rains down dozens of burning shockwaves on the flame hero. When the smoke cleared, it revealed a pummeled, unconscious Endeavor in a good-sized crater. All Might tried to blindside him again, but again he easily dodged and tossed him away. He then hopped on the roof where Hawks was. So, you want a piece of this? Hawks looking at him weirdly with a smile. Why do you have to say it like that? I don't know, it just seemed appropriate. Hawks raised an eyebrow. Really? Anyway, don't do too much of a number on the symbol of peace. I was never gonna get involved in this anyway. Alright, let's go grab some food after this, one said as he jumped back to the ground, and All Might got back. Nizu was hiding somewhere, and he saw that every hero they brought with them minus Hawks, who wasn't helping, was down. All Might grit his teeth as he looked at the Vigilante. We can stop this now. It doesn't have to be this way, he pleaded. I wanted to leave, you people chose this fight, you always chose to fight. I would rather not fight heroes, but if you won't let me leave, what can I do? You people are the ones who make it inevitable, not me, he responded seriously. All Might rushes him, throwing a barrage of punches. One uses his Psychokin to easily deflect and dodge all of All Might's attacks. The number 1 hero gets frustrated as he can't even touch one. He starts to go all out, but nothing changes as one stands in the same spot and easily deflects and dodges all of his attacks without countering at all. He can feel his power declining with every attack. He's a blur as he gives this all he's got, but he can tell one hasn't broken a sweat yet. One then breaks their exchange by swatting away both his arms. He then disappears in a flash, leaving a stunned All Might, who looks around. He's behind you, All Might, Hawks casually called out. Stay over there, peanut gallery, one exclaimed from behind All Might, who was startled when he turned and saw him. All Might, are we done here? Because I do have other things to do today, and this was already a waste of time. Why won't you let me help you? He exclaimed. Because you're just like everyone else, All Might. You say you want to help, but where was that when I needed it? You say I can be a hero, but where were those words when I needed to hear them? I don't need you people for approval or help in becoming a hero. I already am. And I did it on my own. In the world of martial arts, when two fighters are powerful they can understand each other simply from an exchange of fists. Tell me, All Might, do you know how I feel? Do you know what I'm thinking? Can you understand why I walk this path? The look on his face was one of uncertainty and confusion. That's what I thought. One yelled out. I'm leaving, he said, finally fed up as he turned to leave. No, you're not. He turned to see steam coming for All Might as he clenched a fist. I'm sorry. I may never understand you, but I'm going to help you one, and you still don't get it. He said as he turned and got into his stance. The pro rushed the Vigilante while one made a hand sign. He crossed his index fingers under his middle fingers and hooked his middle fingers around his index fingers while he stuck out both his ring and pinky fingers while his thumbs were pointed up and out. This is an attack dedicated to you, All Might. I rarely ever get to use it. He threw both his hands out, firing a massive blast of air with the head of a tiger, roaring Tiger Smash, plus, Ultra. All Might yelled out. The attacks collided and struggled against each other with All Might's seeming stronger. One's attack seemed to shrink but was somehow getting stronger. What the hell is this? All Might thought to himself. One smiled. Now feel the tiger's roar. He exclaimed as in that moment a tiger's roar was heard and his attack exploded, creating a massive blast of air that was like a giant dome over the water, shipyard and the wilderness around it. The water roared rapidly, metal buckled and shattered while trees were uprooted as the attack devastated the entire area. When everything had settled, the shipyard was a wreck. All Might was on his back, his suit was in tatters, he was covered in injuries, and though heavily injured he was still breathing. One walked up and looked down at the defeated number 1 hero. What was that just now? The pro asked weakly through grunted breaths. My roaring Tiger Smash is a unique technique. By forming a particular hand sign and throwing a fast punch, I fire a powerful, focused blast of air pressure with the head of a tiger, but after it's fired it compresses and explodes into a blast of compressed air aimed right at my opponent. It's exceptionally powerful and has a very wide blast radius, which is why I don't get to use it too often. And it's something you definitely don't want to take at point-blank range like you just did. He finished his explanation with a smile. All Might couldn't move, every part of him hurt. His attack completely overpowered his plus ultra. One wasn't going anywhere near all out, he never stood a chance in this fight. He wondered what would happen if they ever fought and he had his answer. One turned to leave before he called out to him. One? He turned around and sighed. We're done here, All Might. What you said before. How am I like everyone else? He asked weakly. He looked at the beaten hero before choosing to answer his final question. Because you couldn't possibly understand what it feels like for the world to dub you a useless failure and make a conscious effort to keep you that way, despite you having dreams like everyone else. He answered before leaped away and flew back to Muzutafu with Skywalk. When one was gone, Niza came out of his hiding place just as All Might reverted back to his true form. Hawks had seen all of this and wanted to go after one to talk, but he decided to help the injured heroes, and he was also told to keep the secret about All Might. Niza looked in the sky in the direction of where one had taken off, and he couldn't help escape the feeling he had a role to play in his pain. Back with one, he looked out to a city that was relatively peaceful today. He linked up with Mirko later that day to get some food and talk about today. He was thankful she didn't participate, and she really helped brighten his mood. They patrolled together until it got dark before they went their separate ways. He had gotten the green light from Momo, so they're officially bang buddies and they'll get together some other time. As he got out of costume and headed home, a part of him felt bad having fought All Might. Despite everything, he was his hero and he didn't want to hurt him. He also never got a chance to ask about AFO and OFA. He'd definitely have to next time they met. For now he was happy hanging out with Eri and just enjoying his peaceful life at home. That's it for today's episode of Chronos. We hope you enjoyed part 5 of our exploration of the What If Deku Became Saitama universe. If you want to see more what if scenarios or have any suggestions for future content, be sure to leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all our latest videos. Remember, being a hero isn't just about having a fancy costume and powers. It's about standing up for what's right and protecting the innocent. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Chronos.